Story 1. Shaming my sister, who's a bridesmaid, for demanding she be maid of honor instead of me. My 26-year-old sister, F28, has made me maid of honor for her wedding in a month and a half. My sister, F21, is throwing a fit. For background, my sister Laura and I were raised by our mom without a dad for the first 5-ish years of my life. It was just the three of us until my mom met my stepdad. They got married and had our little sister, Carrie, not long after. My stepdad is an awesome guy. Before he came along, Laura, Mom, and I lived in a tiny apartment with not much but secondhand items. But we were happy because we had a roof over our head and food on the table. My stepdad has an excellent job, so once they married and had Carrie, we moved into a nice big house, a mansion compared to our apartment, and started getting nice gifts at Christmas time and birthdays. This is what Carrie grew up with, whereas we grew up with a lot less, too. I don't think it affected us as badly because we remember what it's like to be frugal and to not have much. My mom, to this day, is still very frugal, and we love to go thrifting or making our own items like we used to. Anyways, so Laura and I are very separate from Carrie in that regard. Carrie has always been spoiled, but not in a throw a tantrum and ask daddy for a new car way. But she'll ask for a $500 birthday cake and get it, buy name brand things only, and if she can't have something for whatever reason, she'll pout for 3 days and be moody. So, surprise, surprise, she still lives with mom and dad and doesn't have a job of her own, and they seem to be fine with it. But whatever. Anyways, Laura's boyfriend of 6 years proposed last year, and we were all thrilled. He's a great guy and we all love him. When she first got engaged, she gave me, her friend Charlotte, and Carrie a box of beautiful earrings that said, "Will you be a bridesmaid?" Mine said, "Maid of honor." We were all giddy and started coming up with ideas and discussing colors and cakes and all that fun stuff, but they decided to wait a year to save and to figure out what they wanted. Well, 4 months ago, Laura announced she was pregnant, and as a family we were all excited. All except Carrie, who remained quiet and didn't say much about it. Laura then explained that she and Alan decided they want to have the wedding in 2 months with about 30 to 40 people so that they can really celebrate before the baby. Stepdad offered them $10,000 so they could have their dream wedding, but due to the circumstances, they asked if they could use most of that money on a house they were looking at instead, and he agreed. So, Charlotte, Laura, Mom, and I have been frantically planning things, and it's been a lot of fun, except for the fact that Carrie hasn't said much about it from the start. And whenever we start wedding planning, she either goes on her phone or will not pay much attention. Finally, Laura had to talk to her and asked her for more input and to participate more. Carrie agreed. When we were on our way to the dollar store to pick up some wedding decorations, Carrie scoffed and said, "Dollar store decorations? That's so tacky." But we ignored her and did our thing. When we asked if she would help us make handmade invitations, she complained again and said, "It'll look like a bunch of preschoolers made it," and just stormed away. Finally, just recently we were all dress shopping, and Laura told us we can pick whatever dress we want as long as it's blue because she wants it to be simple, and we would be paying for it ourselves. So, Mom, Charlotte, and I went into H&M and found beautiful blue summer maxi dresses. Different styles. Mom had lace, mine is a floral cotton, and Laura thought they were perfect. Except Carrie, of course. She wanted to buy this $2,000 bridesmaid designer gown she found online. My mom told her that was ridiculous. Laura's gown didn't even cost that much. So, Carrie, of course, pouted, and so Mom gave in, and we all went to this fancy bridal shop. Carrie right away found a pink blush gown that she had to wear, but it was $1,000. Mom said, "Absolutely not. Plus, it's not even blue like the other bridesmaids." My sister then said blue was the stupidest color for a bridesmaid dress because we don't even live near the ocean. Anyways, we all left and she had her little pout and Mom lectured her and told her this is a frugal wedding. It's in our backyard barbecue with only 30 to 40 people, and so she doesn't need a $2,000 designer dress of any kind. Fast forward to a few days later, and Carrie says she found a dress to wear that she already had in her closet. Plus, it was blue. So we thought, terrific. But when we went over to Mom and Dad's, Carrie strutted it out in her old prom dress from high school, which is basically a puffy ball gown bedazzled with jewels. As anyone does after high school, she grew out of it so her boobs were spilling out and it overall was not flattering. On top of all that, she was wearing a tiara full of sparkling jewels that she claimed she bought just for the wedding. Mom and Laura were silent, and finally, I felt I had enough, so I snapped and told her she couldn't possibly be serious. Wearing a dress fancier than the bride is one thing. Having your boobs spill out is another, but also wearing a crown on top of that? Who does she think she is? Carrie crossed her arms and said, "I'm the maid of honor. Of course, I'm going to wear a crown." This is when we all get silent until Laura speaks up and says, "Maid of honor? I made Amy maid of honor. You and Charlotte are the bridesmaids." Well, this triggered Carrie, and she began screeching, "What do you mean? I am not maid of honor. You told me I was when you gave us those presents. I got earrings because I am maid of honor." I don't know if, for this past year, Carrie really truly thought she was maid of honor and got the title bridesmaid mixed up, or if she was in denial or simply didn't pay any attention to detail because I've been maid of honor this entire time, and she hasn't said anything about it until then. But this caused her to have the worst meltdown I think I have ever witnessed in my life. I truly thought people only acted like this in movies or storybooks. Whenever a Redditor would post about a bridezilla or wedding meltdown, I always thought this must be exaggerated. But this has been the worst meltdown ever in our family. Carrie began screaming and crying. She ripped off her crown and stomped around until Dad came down to see what all the fuss was about. Through her blubbering, she told Laura her wedding was all wrong. She said she should be using the $10,000 for a nice wedding instead of that ugly brick house she and Alan wanted because that's what the money was meant for. She also said it was the stupidest idea ever that my sister would want to get married while pregnant because you look like a fat swan in your wedding dress. And again, she rambled on to something about how blue is a dumb color because we don't live near an ocean. I think at this point she's just pulling stuff out of her ass. Dad tried to calm her down, and she finally screams that if she can't be maid of honor, then no one can and she won't go to the wedding. At this point, Laura is a mess and is crying her heart out, and I'm ready to smack that little witch so hard that the crown stays off her head permanently. But before I can say anything, Laura says, "Fine, you can be maid of honor. You win." And just like that, Carrie stopped crying and she gave a small smile before going up to her room. Mom and Dad start arguing. Dad saying, "There's nothing you can do to control a 20-year-old's behavior," and Laura had gone to the next room to call Alan about potentially canceling the wedding. I'm so angry that I end up storming into Carrie's room to see that she's on her laptop ordering that stupid pink $2,000 dress. I was so dumbfounded at the nerve of her that I couldn't even face her. I left and didn't say a word. Downstairs, Laura is crying to her fiancé, and the parents are yelling all the while Carrie is happily in her room buying stupid crap because she got her way. I don't think I've ever been this angry. I wish Laura had more of a backbone. I would have told Carrie to not bother coming if she was going to act like that. I don't even know what to do now. I'm also hurt that Laura gave the title to her just like that because she screamed for it. I don't know what to say or do to anyone. What should I do? Quick edit. We live on a farm, so we have approximately 6 acres of open space where we are holding the wedding. The cooks who are preparing the hot dogs and hamburgers will be wearing masks. The guests are all required to wear masks, and we have hand sanitizer bottles at every table. Sorry, I had forgotten to include that. Personally, I wouldn't want to risk it too much, but I'll be wearing a mask and hand sanitizing constantly so I don't have to miss my sister's wedding and pray that everything turns out fine. We also have a little tap at the side of our house we use as a sink all the time that's available to guests. I forget that a lot of people right now probably aren't taking any precautions at all, so I wanted to mention we are, if at least a little. Update 1. Shaming my sister for demanding to be maid of honor instead of me. Just wanted to post an update on what happened this afternoon when I made that post. It was already 3 days past the Carrie meltdown, so I gave it a lot of time and thought and soaked in everyone's piece of advice on here. Alan, Laura's fiancé, had actually called me early this morning and asked if I'd be able to go over to see Laura because he's fed up with Carrie, and we need to act fast. I was relieved to hear I wasn't the only one fed up besides those on Reddit, so I went over straight away. Laura was on the couch in her PJs, hair unwashed, and it looked like she had been crying the last few days. The image absolutely broke my heart, and immediately she apologized to me and said she didn't know what to do now. Alan said he thought the 3 of us should all sit down with her and have an intervention, but Laura shut that down right away and said she doesn't think she could handle any more yelling. I agreed that being yelled at is the last thing Laura needs, and it should just be me and Alan, but Laura was nervous about that, too. She didn't want Carrie to feel like she was being bombarded. So, finally, after a few back and forths, Laura decided that she just wanted me alone to talk to Carrie without Mom and Dad and her. Sue and I together made a list of things that I need to address with her so that way things don't steer off topic, such as how it's unacceptable to yell at a pregnant woman no matter the circumstances, how disrespectful she was to criticize anything with the wedding, the name-calling, and, of course, the most important part about her crying in order to be maid of honor. I also decided to bring up with Laura about the fact that Charlotte and I, the other bridesmaid, were planning to have a fun bachelorette slumber party in a few days to help Laura celebrate. Laura's face lit up, and she seemed excited. I told her it was supposed to be a surprise and Carrie was supposed to come, but given the circumstances and the fact that it's at my flat, I don't want her there anymore, and I wanted to see if Laura was fine with that. She said she was, and that she'd much rather have her other friend over instead of her. I told her that was completely fine, and after some more talking, I made my way to Mom and Dad's to see Carrie. As soon as I walked in, Mom asked me what I was doing there, and I told her I needed to speak to Carrie. Mom looked around and, in a hushed tone, told me it's best I leave because the last 3 days after things were resolved, Carrie has been perfectly happy, and no one in this family needs any more drama. I told Mom I was sorry, but things, in fact, were not resolved. They were far from resolved. That's when Carrie walked into the kitchen and asked what I was doing there. Mom tried to brush it off and say, "Nothing. Amy was just coming to get something, but she's on her way out now." But I told her, no, actually, that's a lie. I'm here to talk to you about what happened the other day alone. Carrie didn't seem pleased. Mom's face was as red as a tomato, but Carrie and I proceeded to go into her bedroom to talk. I firstly told her how completely unacceptable it was for her to raise her voice and scream at a pregnant woman because of how harmful it was for the baby. Immediately, Carrie scoffed and said, "No, it isn't. Don't make up lies to make me feel guilty." I told her, "What lies? You said the baby isn't going to be affected just because I raised my voice. It doesn't even know what's going on. You're just making stuff up." What to this girl, I swear. I decided it's no use arguing with stupid, so I told her, pregnant or not, this was Laura's wedding, not hers, and all of the name-calling she did and harsh criticism of the decorations was completely childish and unacceptable. I then brought up the fact how her throwing that tantrum to get her way was the most childish thing I've ever seen in my life, and that if things were reversed and I made Laura take away Carrie's maid of honor job, she would have lost her mind. So, how was it in any ways all right for her to do it to me? In response to that, she told me, I'm acting so pathetic, and that I reek of jealousy. She then said, there's no real problem here. You're just jealous. Laura decided she wanted me after all. I told her this was false. She wanted me, otherwise she wouldn't have asked, but agreed to make Carrie maid of honor to stop the fighting. Carrie then very smugly said, there was nothing I could do about it now, so I'd better get over it. That's when I told her she was no longer welcome to the sleepover we had planned, and that Laura also did not want her to come until Carrie decides to apologize to both me, Laura, and our parents for her outrageous behavior. She was no longer welcome in my and my fiancé's home. Suddenly, Mom burst through the door. I'm assuming she was listening in, and went completely ape. She told me I had no right to ban Carrie from the sleepover and from my house, and that the only reason I was doing it was to get back at her. She told me I was stirring up unnecessary drama, and that at least Carrie didn't mean to hurt feelings the other day, whereas right now I'm doing it on purpose. This is when Carrie begins to cry and moan about how I'm always bullying her and I'm not being fair. My mom then goes over to Carrie and starts rubbing her back and says, I know, honey. She's being very rude to you right now. You didn't start anything. Gag. That's when I noticed stepdad standing at the door, and I said to him, do you not see all this? Did she at least tell you she bought that pink $2,000 dress? Dad looked awkwardly between my mom, sister, and me before saying, I think everyone is stressed out, and no one means what they say. Sisters fight, and I know by the end of the wedding you'll all be the best of friends again. At this point, I really had enough. I told everyone I was leaving, and Mom got up and said the discussion wasn't over. I told her, actually, it was over, and unless Carrie apologizes to me and Laura, I will not be speaking to her. On my way out, I heard Carrie say there was nothing she needs to apologize about, but I kept walking. To say that I was hurt and angry is an understatement, and with how my head was pounding, I just wanted some Advil and juice, so I went to the nearest substance store. Now, this part might have been where I crossed over the line. I'm honestly not so sure, but in my last post, I didn't mention because I didn't find it relevant that Carrie has a boyfriend she's been going out with for approximately 6 months. His name is Noah, he's 27, he's hardcore Christian, and overall a really cool guy. I've met him at the city's university about 2 years ago, and we had a lot of the same courses together and became pals. He and Carrie have quite a bit in common. They both love animals. He fosters animals all the time, and Carrie, at that point, was debating on studying to be a vet. So, at the beginning of January, Noah moved back to our part of the city where he got a job as a pharmacist, and that's when he and Carrie started going out, which we were all cool with because he really is a great person. Because of his Christian values, he's very excited to get married and have kids ASAP. He said multiple times he hopes to be engaged by the end of this year. Carrie is also his first relationship, which might be another reason why he's so anxious for the commitment. Anyways, I got some Advil and juice and was surprised to see Noah because I didn't know he worked at this particular pharmacy. So, he waved me over and saw the Advil and asked if I was sick. I told him, no, just a headache from the wedding stress. He said, oh, Carrie never mentioned any wedding stress. She said things were going terrific. This surprised me but mostly pissed me off, so I asked him if that means she never told him about the situation a few days before. He had no clue. So, I made it brief, and I told him the highlights of her name-calling, screaming, and choosing her own dress against my sister's wishes, and how now she's the new maid of honor. This surprised Noah, and he said stuff like, "Are you sure? I know Carrie. She always hates yelling. She didn't actually make that big of a scene, did she?" I told him, yes, it was all very unfortunately true. Then I told him that if she talks to him, to please recommend her some sort of therapist. He knows quite a few. And I told him perhaps she might even need medicine for bipolar disorder, for all I know. I told him, I am now out of her life unless she apologizes, and if I were him, I would think very carefully before making a commitment to her anytime soon. He stood there and didn't respond, so I left. When I went home, Alan and my fiancé were playing video games, and they asked what happened, so I told them everything. Alan and my fiancé think I was in the right for everything, including warning Noah. Later on that evening, however, I got countless texts from Carrie and my mother who were furious that I mentioned anything to Noah, just to start on purpose. I did not respond to any of the messages, and instead I blocked both of their numbers for the time being. As for Noah, Carrie has him wrapped around her little finger completely, so I honestly don't see him doing anything drastic. He sees how she is when she's pouty and how she is when she's spoiled, but I think all of that goes over his head completely. But still, I felt I needed to say something. I wish I could say I feel better and like a new woman, but I don't. I feel hurt and betrayed. It feels like my throat or my chest are clogged, and I honestly don't know if it'll ever clear. At the end of the day, Laura called me and said she really wants me as her maid of honor, but in order to keep the peace, she is choosing Carrie for now. I will swallow my pride and my pain and support my favorite sister in anything she decides, and I'm going to love my new niece/nephew to bits. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and if you have any more advice or words of wisdom, I'm all ears. Update 2. Shaming my sister who's a bridesmaid for demanding to be maid of honor instead of me. So, it was about 2 weeks. I think it's all been a weird blur since I had that talk with Carrie, and I had since then blocked my mom, dad, and Carrie on everything, just hoping things may settle on their own. Well, it didn't exactly settle, but here's what happened. About 2 weeks after everything, my fiancé and I were just chilling late one evening watching TV. It was about 2 a.m. when my fiancé gets a phone call from Carrie. He had never blocked her number or mom's, so at first we just left it, not wanting to deal with whatever Carrie was wanting to talk about at 2 a.m. But then, right after we ignored the first call, she called a second time and left a voicemail telling my fiancé to pick up the phone ASAP because there's an emergency. Right away, he called back, and all we could understand from Carrie was something was going on with Mom, and she didn't know what to do. We hurried over there and were greeted by Carrie, who told us Mom was acting hysterical, and she didn't know what to do. When I asked where Stepdad was, she said they had gotten into a huge row a few days prior, and he was now staying at a hotel somewhere. She led us over to Mom's room, and on the way there, I could see the family photos that were hung up in the hallway were either laying on the floor or smashed. When we entered the bedroom, however, Mom was calmly watching a TV show. She looked over to me and said something along the lines of, "Well, if it isn't my only daughter." Her speech was incredibly slurred, so it was hard to hear, and Carrie told me not to pay any mind to what she was saying because the last hour she's been out of it and saying off things. I thought maybe Mom was going to start shouting or something, but instead, she continued to watch TV. I asked Carrie if Mom was drunk, and she said she wasn't sure, although she knew she had some wine earlier. Apparently, Mom had been saying weird stuff that just made no sense at all, then started screaming and shouting about broken families being stuck in the picture frame, so that's why there was that mess in the hall. As I was questioning Carrie, my fiancé decided to call the emergency line to get Mom an ambulance. He asked Carrie if Mom was on any medication, and apparently she was on something for anxiety and depression, which I had no idea about. I knew Mom had anxiety issues, but I never knew much else. Once my fiancé got off the phone with the emergency line, Carrie went and grabbed us the bottles of Mom's medications to bring to the doctors while my fiancé tried to get a hold of my stepdad. I asked Carrie if she contacted our other sister, and she said no because she didn't want to cause any unnecessary stress for her or for the baby. She then went on to admit that she knew I was right the entire time when I told her that stress could affect a pregnancy but just didn't want to admit it before. I decided now wasn't the time to argue and just kept my mouth shut. Eventually, the paramedics came, and just as they did, Mom started screaming in hysterics again, screaming and yelling stuff that I don't even quite remember because it was garbled and didn't make sense. Something about her needing to stay to feed the baby. We all went to the hospital, and eventually my fiancé finally got a hold of Stepdad, and he arrived much later. But the doctor figured, with the amount of stress and with her and Dad's constant fighting, plus with the mixture of alcohol and her medication, turns out she had drunk quite a bit that night. It was like she just sort of snapped and she became somewhat confused and disoriented. He also figures Mom hasn't been taking her medication properly. Physically, Mom was perfectly fine, but they are keeping her in for a few days just to keep an eye on her due to COVID. I haven't been able to visit her or see her until she gets released, but Dad was able to go in and verify a few things, but as far as I know, he's not really allowed to stay with her either and was only able to see her that night she was admitted. As for the actual wedding stuff, while Carrie and I were driving back home, she had told me that Laura texted her a few days before and told her that I was still going to be maid of honor. The decision was final, and she would not be answering her or our parents' phone calls or texts about the matter. Hearing this had led to more fighting between Mom, Dad, and Carrie and shouting, and that's when things went mostly downhill. Neither Carrie nor my parents have spoken to Laura in a few days since. I was completely taken aback, especially since Laura never told me this herself. I tried getting more information, but Carrie was pretty much silent the entire way back home. She did have a little speech prepared about how she might no longer ever consider me her sister again, how betrayed she was by everything, and I just let her talk and didn't have much to say. I was too tired to fight or do anything, and she had nothing else to say about the wedding or Mom's breakdown, and I haven't spoken to her since. Currently, I am looking for family therapy for the very near future. I'm not sure what's available since COVID, but I plan on getting in touch with Mom's doctor to see if he has any suggestions. I had told Alan what had happened, and I'm hoping he will be able to tell Laura without her stressing out too much. I suggested he keep it vague and to tell her Mom was completely fine. This all started because of wedding plans, but I guess we just had our problems from the start, and it all escalated. Feel free to ask any questions, and I'll do my best to answer. It's all been a bit foggy for me, so I may have left out important details. Final update. Shaming my sister who's a bridesmaid for demanding to be maid of honor instead of me. Laura had the wedding. It was before the second lockdown and out on our family's farm with about maybe 50 people that showed. Carrie wore the dress she chose because Laura caved and then wore the tiara thing she picked out days before the wedding. Carrie made Facebook posts directed at me, just statuses saying stuff like, "Can't believe my own family would be so toxic and bully me," stuff like that. So eventually I blocked her. Honestly, nothing too out there happened during the wedding. Carrie got drunk and tried to sing and dance and make the attention fall on her, of course, but nothing overly out there. She gave me the cold shoulder big time, and if I would enter the room, she would announce that she can't be around negative energy, then leave, dragging her boyfriend with her. Her boyfriend proposed to her and texted me asking if I would please try to make things up with her and help plan the wedding. I told him I was sorry, but I still wanted to be his friend. I just can't have her in my life. He told me he was sorry and he hopes we one day reconcile. Haven't spoken to Carrie in months, but Laura is doing good, and they still keep in touch. Mom and my stepdad have been silent, and I've just been keeping my distance as well. I don't have any of them on Facebook anymore, but Laura keeps me in the loop. Anyways, not much else has happened. Not a very exciting update, but thanks, everyone, for the support. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Caught my wife cheating, so I ruined her social media career and served her with divorce papers. Hi guys, I'm 28M. About 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my wife of less than a year, Bianca, 27F, had been cheating on me. When Bianca and I started dating, she told me she had recently broken up with her ex-boyfriend, whom she had dated for 3 years, and was currently single. I was also single then and had not dated for 2 years because my previous relationship left me scarred. Since we both had been hurt from our last relationships, Bianca and I promised to never cheat or do anything that would hurt each other. I knew I would keep to my end of the promise and hoped Bianca would do the same. We dated for 2 years and some months before we got married. Being with Bianca brought me the most happiness out of all my exes. She was a natural humorist and always had a way of making the people around her smile. The first few months of our marriage were filled with laughter and fun. I always looked forward to being with her. While Bianca was a social media influencer and had her own online store, I worked as a data analyst for a big tech firm in our town. I'll admit that there were days when my job was so demanding that I didn't spend enough time with Bianca, as promised. In a month, I would miss our dates twice because I was either overwhelmed with completing a task at the office or completely forgot we were supposed to attend a function together. Each time this happened, I tried to make it up to her, which would settle it. Her favorite chocolate was Snickers, and gifting her a box of Snickers or a few bars always made her happy. 6 months after we married, my company allowed me to work 3 weeks remotely and 1 week on site. When this happened, I was glad I could finally spend more time with Bianca. Since her social media influence was something she did remotely, she was also so happy when I told her about my new work schedule, and things started returning to how it was for us. Within the first 4 weeks I started working remotely, I noticed something off with Bianca. I knew always being on her phone was part of her job as an influencer, but I noticed something else. Every time Bianca was on her phone and I walked close to her, I saw she would quickly change the app she was on and would switch to something else. Even though I wasn't standing next to her, I could tell what she did by her body and finger movements. Aside from that, she became secretive with her laptop, and each time she heard my voice or I walked in her direction, she would close the laptop and pretend she wasn't using it. Everything always happened so fast, but she never knew I had been observing her. One day, when I couldn't take it anymore, I confronted her about it. She said that I was being ridiculous and that she had nothing to hide from me. That day, she was doing something on her laptop, and she even asked me to come and take a look to clear my curiosity. I did, and there was nothing suspicious about it. She even showed me her conversations on all her social media accounts, which were strictly work conversations. In the 2 years and some months Bianca and I had dated, that was the first time she allowed me to read her chats. While we dated, we used to have access to each other's phones, but I never checked or went through her chats with her clients because I felt it was confidential. I had no reason to even go through them. I trusted her. But after she showed me the conversations by herself, I strongly felt something was amiss. It was very unlike her to show me the activities on her laptop or her phone conversations on her own. Maybe she thought she could mislead me by showing me the conversations she wanted me to see, but I didn't fall for it. I could quickly tell when someone was acting shady, and with all the stories I had read here on Reddit, I couldn't ignore the feeling that Bianca was hiding something from me. Some days passed, and I didn't mention the issue of her being sneaky with her phone and laptop again. I kept watching her to be sure I wasn't making false allegations before taking action. A few days after the confrontation, Bianca had a few of her influencer friends over for a small get-together at our place. We all had a great time together, but Bianca was a bit distracted even when everyone was eating, laughing, and having a nice time together. Bianca kept texting someone between meals. It happened numerous times that even her friends noticed. One of them was forced to ask her whom she kept texting. When she looked up and saw everyone's eyes were on her, she dropped her phone on the table, faked a smile, and said it was work-related and she was done. No one said anything after that, and we all continued to eat. After the guests were gone and we were cleaning up, Bianca brought up the topic of the client she kept texting all the while during the evening. She said the client wanted her to be his brand ambassador for a skincare product and promote his product for a year. Now, this is a very normal conversation to have with your spouse, but it wasn't normal for us because Bianca never discussed her clients or what they wanted her to do for them. She just did her thing and I did mine. So her starting a conversation about her client felt off to me. It was almost like she was trying to give an excuse for her actions before I asked her about it. I didn't say much after she did. I only smiled and pretended to be a part of the conversation. Meanwhile, 1,000 thoughts were already running through my head. I already knew I wouldn't find anything on her phone or laptop that could show she was cheating on me as I suspected, but I came up with the idea of listening to her conversations. There's this app that allows you to see what another person is doing on their phone, listen to their conversations, and see their messages. To do this, I had to install the app on my phone and her phone. That way, I could listen to her calls and see everyone she chatted with. The reason I was so jumpy to find out if Bianca was cheating on me, even when she didn't act strange around me or change her attitude towards me, was because I had been cheated on in my last relationship. And even though I told Bianca I loved her and believed she wouldn't cheat on me, a part of me was still looking for cheating signs. I consciously read meaning into everything, even when it was normal, because I didn't want to ignore the red flags as I did in my previous relationship. After successfully installing the app on both our phones, I started my investigation. Truly, Bianca was always chatting with her clients, but there was someone else she chatted with every day, and she was careful enough not to call him or take his calls whenever I was at home or we were together. 2 days after I paired my phone with Bianca's phone, she spoke with him for the first time, and the funny thing was she had known him for years. He was the same ex-boyfriend she told me she had broken up with. When I listened to their conversation for the first time, it was clear that the guy knew Bianca was married and I worked from home. That evening, Bianca sent me outside to get some groceries because she had forgotten to pick some of them up. I was driving to the grocery store when they had that call. He asked Bianca about me, and she told him that I had gone to get groceries. She told him that she pretended to forget the groceries on her way back so I would go and get them and give them enough time to talk on the phone. He was kind enough to tell her to be careful so I wouldn't catch her, and Bianca said, "Oh, Jackie would never leave me. He loves me too much to leave me, poor thing." And after she said that, they laughed and continued to talk about how they would meet later that evening. After listening to all of their conversations, I returned home in anger. When I got home, Bianca asked why I didn't get the groceries. Again, I lied that I got a call from the office to come and submit something urgently, and she bought it. By the time I got home, she was already dressed and had her makeup on. She told me she was going to hang out with some of her girlfriends and would be back before midnight, then kissed me on the cheek like she was being truthful and left. As soon as she left, I called one of my friends and told him what I had found out. He offered to come with me to the restaurant Bianca and her boyfriend were going to. When we arrived at the restaurant, we saw Bianca cuddled up with her boyfriend while he was trying to feed her. I just walked up to her, ensured that she saw me, and I walked out of the restaurant. Everything happened so fast, and her facial expression showed she was shocked to see me there with my friend. Immediately I walked out. She got up from her table and followed me. At first, she wanted to pretend she hadn't done anything wrong. But when she saw my friend recording her, she knew she had been busted. As I expected, she came up with an excuse that she had come to meet with her client and that it wasn't what it looked like. But I didn't say a word to her. My friend and I drove back home, and Bianca arrived shortly after we got home. She came into the house and tried to talk to me, but I was more focused on picking my clothes. We jointly rented the apartment, so I couldn't kick her out even if I wanted to. Instead, I took the stuff I needed and left with my friend that night. Since that night, Bianca has been sending me multiple messages and calling me repeatedly. After weeks of not taking her calls, she sent voice notes of yet another series of lies. She said that her ex-boyfriend, whom she was cheating with, wanted to connect her with a big client. Hence she went to meet him, but somehow she felt cold because of the tiny strap gown she wore, and he tried to cover her. This was supposed to explain why they were cuddling each other, and she thought I would buy it. Until now, she doesn't know that I paired our phones, and I still see the conversation between them. Just 3 days ago, I made a recent discovery. There's a contract that Bianca has been doing for more than 2 months now where the pay is great. Her AP was one of the employees of the brand which she was promoting. This means there was an iota of truth in what she said. I also found out they have been bad-mouthing their company's products. I guess their love rekindled when he came back into the picture. Now, the thing is, I'm so sure Bianca is not supposed to be involved with any of the company staff or bad-mouthing the company. If the organization finds out, her contract will be terminated, and her image will be tarnished. Regarding the video my friend made, I haven't posted it online as intended because I have mixed feelings about it. For the past years, Bianca has maintained an excellent public image, and even though she gets dragged online by some of her annoying fans, she has not had any serious issues with the brand she influences. Right now, I'm going through so much emotionally, and I want to repay her for using me like that. I intend to leak the conversation between Bianca and her boyfriend and the video of them together. I hope no one will try to advise me against my plans because my mind is already made up. Most times, I wonder why people get married in the first place because a lot of women are not worth the sacrifices we men make for them. In Bianca's case, I thought we would build a family together, but it turned out she's just like every other woman out there who wants to eat her cake and have it. Update 1. Hello everyone. Thank you for your comments. It's sad that I am only finding out from your comments that influencers have a high infidelity rate. I married Bianca because she looked like she was the one. Besides that, I fell in love with her personality, not her profession, and we dated for almost 3 years. Also, I took my time with her before we married to get to know her well, and I thought I knew her well enough before marrying her. She told me she had cut off ties with her ex-boyfriend and would never have anything to do with him again. Even if he were the last man on earth, her words. I guess I was dumb to fall for her words. My only joy is that I took action immediately after I started suspecting her. Maybe if I still wanted to be the good husband who showers his wife with enough benefits of the doubt, I would still be stuck with her now and would be innocently helping her pick the perfect outfit for her girls' night out. So for my revenge plan, I have posted the video of Bianca and her AP captured at the restaurant where they were coyly snuck into each other. The video was not received well by her fans who called her a cheater. I also leaked the conversation between Bianca and her lover where they were bad-mouthing the brand. The good news is that the company she influenced has terminated their contract with her, and her boyfriend has been fired. Also, Bianca and her boyfriend had been saying all forms of bad things about a particular product she was promoting, and they talked about how the company had been ripping people off with their substandard product. Bianca was forced to make an online apology. She had to take back everything she said and then had to deal with the company afterward. When this happened, it not only ruined her reputation with the company that fired her but also caused a ripple effect with her other contracts. Other brands had to end their contracts with her because of how her video and chat spread like wildfire. Because of this, she was literally left with nothing. At the end of it all, as if ruining her influence or reputation was not enough, the headlines carried her name about the video of her cheating on her husband. It was so satisfying. A friend called and asked if what they saw online was true, and I assured them that it was. Also, before I shared the video and conversation online, I sent it to her parents. I told them it was officially over between Bianca and me. I also said some shitty things about Bianca and how she was a disgrace to herself and womanhood. Then I blocked both of their numbers from calling. 2 days ago, Bianca showed up at my office and created a scene. I told security I wouldn't see her, but she refused to leave. She wasn't even allowed into the building, but she kept yelling my name and was kicked off the property. Serves her right. Since the evening I moved out of the house, I haven't seen her face to face. I had only been following her on Facebook and Instagram to see how messed up everything had been for her. Thank you everyone for your kind suggestions and advice. I will make another update soon. Update 2. Hello everyone, thank you for your comments. It's been a week and some days since I made the last update, and I wanted to wait till after the divorce was settled. But something happened yesterday, and I want to share it. Bianca found out that I was the one who leaked the conversation and video online. Maybe her parents told her, but I'm not sure. She was livid when she came to my friend's house where I was crashing after leaving my apartment. When Bianca came, she started yelling that I had ruined her life and promised she would destroy mine too. She said so many horrible things. One of them was that she regretted marrying me and claimed she didn't know what she saw in a lowlife like me to marry me. She said many rude things and became violent when she saw my friend recording her again. Because of her anger, she picked up a huge stone from my friend's lawn and threw it at the window from where my friend was recording her. The stone cracked the window, and my friend's phone fell while he hurried to pull his hand inside the house. I was so furious and went outside to confront her. In the process of us yelling at each other, she brought out a small penknife and slashed all 4 tires of my car in my presence. Then she used the knife tip to scratch a long line from the front door to the back door and said, "Well, how do you like your new car?" Then she left. I have never been so angry in my life. Right now, I cannot move my car unless I change all 4 tires, and I cannot drive the car around with a long scratch mark. My friend insisted that I sue her in court, and he had everything recorded from inside the house. He will also be suing her for the damage to his window, and he isn't even joking about it. I have decided to sue Bianca because I cannot let her get away with the damage she did. She will pay every penny it costs to replace all tires and spray/paint my car. Concerning her social media presence, she has been very quiet lately. The rave about her infidelity and badmouthing the brand she was promoting has gone down, but she has not been making her Instagram live videos, reels, and other things she used to do. I also forgot to mention that many people unfollowed her, mainly because of the video. People commented that they used to envy our marriage and how she painted us to be perfect couples online. They even found it difficult to believe she would do such a thing in our first year of marriage, which was meant to be our honeymoon phase. Anyway, what has happened has happened. I cannot condone infidelity just to look perfect in the eyes of people I don't even know. I will make another update once everything has been settled. Thank you for your time. Update 3. Hello everyone. I know it has been a while since I made my last update. I had to wait for everything to be finalized before posting again. Thank you for your patience. Meanwhile, I appreciate your support in me suing Bianca for the damages she made. I am overjoyed as I make this update because everything happened just how I wanted it. My friend and I sued Bianca for damages, and the court ruled in our favor. Can you all believe Bianca tried to deny shattering my friend's window and slashing my tires? She said I was jealous because she left me for her ex-boyfriend and I slashed the tires to frame her. She didn't even remember that she was being recorded by my friend, and all the evidence we needed was in that video. We told the judge we had a video of her slashing my tires, and the judge asked to see it. When the judge found out that she was lying, she was angry. She asked for an estimate of what it would cost to replace all 4 tires and spray that part of my car, and I showed it to her. I followed your suggestions and checked for the cost of everything plus workmanship. The judge gladly asked her to pay for them. That same day, she had a case with my friend. The judge didn't let her lie or defend herself because she had seen the video of Bianca being violent and throwing the stone at my friend's window. She also ruled in my friend's favor, and Bianca was pissed. I enjoyed looking at her angry facial expression. I was thinking her dear boyfriend would be around to support her, but he didn't show up. 2 weeks after the court case, the divorce papers were ready, and I had the lawyer send them to her. She didn't even waste time signing them, and we included everything. Watching her play victim in the circumstance she created for herself was funny. I'm now happy to announce that Bianca is officially a part of my past. Unlike her who goes back on her words, I'll never have anything to do with her again. I have blocked her contact on all mutual social media platforms. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Sister seduced my rich doctor fiancé, and baby-trapped him years ago. Now she's begging me to save his career after he botched a surgery, even offering a favor in return. This is about my sister, Carol. Well, I'm going to call her by her real name because who cares? There's no better way of saying this, but yeah, Carol lured my fiancé into her skirts because she felt he was too handsome and rich for a plain-looking girl like me. She thought he deserved someone gorgeous, so she offered herself. And that dumbass dick married her. Good for them, because I got rid of a cheater and found someone who actually deserved me. Hear me out. This is going to be a long one because it goes back from 15 years ago when I was in my mid-20s. Now I am 41. Carol is 6 years younger than me and a complete opposite personality. She's that girl who gets the most attention in all family and social gatherings, and she ensured that she got it right from our childhood. She was more focused on getting dressed up and hanging out with friends. No doubt. She's pretty, what you call drop-dead gorgeous. And she's proud of it. She leaves no opportunity to flaunt her superficial beauty and look down upon others who don't fit her beauty standard. Like me. She was always critical of my dressing sense and made fun of my not-so-social nature. As a kid, I was more inclined towards academia, so I was mostly seen with my books and comics. Instead of putting makeup on my Barbie, I didn't even own a Barbie, Carol, and I never shared a sisterly bond. She considered herself to be a fashionista while I was a plain-looking girl. That's what she called me, plain. Well, she was right to an extent. I'm a simple woman with no pomp and show, no over-the-top drama for attention. I'm calm and composed and like to be in my own space. Very early on, I left home for my high school, and I couldn't be more relieved. Who wants to be around an entitled brat? Life was pretty much fun with my busy schedule in medical school. I used to visit home during holidays or spring break, and I kept my trips short. Things got straightened out with Carol as we had minimal encounters. Carol dropped out of high school to pursue a career in fashion. Later she again dropped out of fashion school for a modeling career. Until I was in touch with her, she got 2 photo shoot projects for a local apparel brand in 5 years. I'm not sure if we can call this a successful modeling career, which she often refers to. If you think I mean, hold on. After I moved out of the house, the bitterness between Carol and me subsided. We met twice a year for a few days. She didn't get enough opportunity to piss me off, so we were cool. In my freshman year in college, I met Smith. He was quite senior to me. He was pursuing his master's while I was in my freshman year for a bachelor's degree. Besides, he had a couple of years of hands-on experience as a duty doctor. He was specializing as a heart specialist, one of the most reputed specializations. To add a cherry to the cake, he was handsome. He used to give lessons on the subject of the circulatory system to freshman students to earn some extra bucks and brush up his knowledge. He was popular for his simple teaching methods. More popular amongst the girls because, who doesn't want to take lessons from a blue-eyed, 6'2", lean, and well-built university senior? I also took lessons from him, and eventually we started dating. In my final year of college, he proposed to me. After dating him for 4 years, I had no reason to say no. He was already working at a hospital by then. During holidays when I went home, Mom saw the ring on my finger and asked. In the happy moments of festivities, I told her everything. She jumped in excitement because it is not usual that I get serious with anyone. Smith was the first guy I ever dated or had sex with. Mom asked me the details about Smith because she sniffed our marriage on the cards. Carol often used to say that I'm never going to find a good man to marry me. By good, she meant rich and handsome. Whenever she got to know that I was seeing a guy, she would remark, "He's so going to run away. Your relationship won't even last for a week." So when Carol got to know about Smith, her eyes lit up, and she wanted to know more about him. It was kind of unusual for her to take an interest in my life because it has always been very boring. I asked, "Why you want to know about him?" She said, "He's going to be family, so I should know him." Mom asked me to call him for dinner on New Year's Eve. Later, I got to know that Carol had asked Mom to invite Smith. We didn't have any plans for that year, so Smith agreed to tag along. When we reached home, we were greeted by Carol. It was quite surprising because Carol is a party person. She's never seen home on weekends. On New Year's, she is off for a week-long party with her friends. But this time she was at home. Quite surprising. Should have been alarming, right? But I didn't get bothered. I don't give a shit about others' lives. I went home with Smith, and my sister was floored by Smith. Her first comment was, "I thought you'd be rich, but you're handsome, too." Her flirtatious gestures were just so evident. It was right on my face. Yet I didn't take any heed. I was secure in my relationship. Throughout the evening, she made moves at him by complimenting him, trivially touching his arms and thighs unnecessarily, and forcing a conversation with him. She sat next to him at the dinner table. I gave her a look, and she made a cute pout and said, "You get to sit with him every day. Today I can be his arm candy." Everyone chuckled, and we took it as light fun. During the conversation, she got to know that Smith goes for a walk after his dinner. As soon as he cleaned up after the dinner, she offered to give him a tour of the neighborhood. Smith looked at me while I sat there with a straight face, not knowing what to say. Smith replied with an awkward yes, and they both went out for a walk that night. While we were driving back from my parents' place, Smith asked me if I noticed how Carol was flirting with him. I laughed and brushed it off, saying, "She's an attention seeker." I thought Smith wasn't so shallow that he would fall for superficial beauty, but dang, he did. He was equally mesmerized by Carol's charm, and he cheated on the first opportunity he got. A few months later, I had my final year exams. As usual, I cut down on our hangouts to focus on my studies. Eventually, I found him cutting down the communication. When I confronted him, he said he wanted me to focus on my finals. I was too busy to suspect any foul play. On the last day of my exam, I asked him to pick me up from college. He said he was busy. Later that night, I called him to check upon him. He said he was home but was too tired and ready to doze off. I went to his place to surprise him, but it was locked. I called him again, but he didn't respond. I waited for his call the next day, but he didn't call back. Shamelessly, I called him again and asked him why he lied the last night. He said he forgot to mention that he crashed at his colleague's place. Stupid me didn't read this to be any signal. How would I? This was the first time anything such was happening to me. This continued for a week until my lost marbles came back to senses. I asked him point blank if he wanted to break up with me. He hesitated for a few seconds before murmuring a yes. He said he no longer loved me. That was it, that last conversation we ever had. I didn't ask what, when, how. Heartbreak is always painful, and that too without any reason, even more. He left me with a sense of insecurity, self-doubt, and many unanswered questions which he didn't answer, and neither did I ask. It took months and many bottles of single malt whiskey, but eventually, I moved on. Glad that he broke up after my finals, else I would have taken one more year to finish up medical school. 7 months later, I got a call from Carol, and she invited me for her engagement. I congratulated her and asked about the guy. She didn't say the name and asked me to come to the party and meet him in person. I was happy for her. Yes, it saddened me for a while that I was supposed to be married during that time, but I was single, nursing my breakup. I tried to forget my miserable life and showed up at my sister's engagement. As soon as he entered the venue, I saw the board as Carol and Smith. It gave me shivers down my spine, but I calmed down myself, saying, Smith is too common a name. He might be someone else, but as I went inside, I ran into 2 of Smith's friends. They turned the other side when they saw me coming. My heartbeat raised as I went near the podium where Carol was supposed to be sitting with her fiancé. The moment I saw Smith sitting with her, his arms wrapped around hers, I froze. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there with tears in my eyes. The next I remember was my mom pulling me to a corner and asking me to behave. She asked me not to create any scene there and let everyone be happy. She said, "No one knows about our past, and she would like to have it that way." I cried out loud and yelled, "You knew everything, and yet you let this happen. Carol is an a-hole. You all are evil. You all are in this together." By then, I saw Carol coming with an evil smile. It was like 15 years ago, yet I remember every word of hers so clearly. That was the most humiliating moment of my life. She said, "You thought you could have this man," pointing towards Smith, "handsome, tall, rich, and you're so plain? No way. You don't deserve him. You deserve someone plain like you. Do you see how beautiful we look together? And how people are adoring us? Oh my God. So cute couple. Ha! Everyone would have laughed to see you beside him." I wanted to slap her right across her face, but my mom stopped me and asked me to leave. She thought I was there to stop the engagement. She was yelling at me, "Why did you come here? Don't you have any self-respect?" I said, "I didn't know that this shit is effing him. Had I known, I would have never shown my face." Carol denied having invited me. She lied to Mom that she didn't invite me. Mom had asked her not to invite me because I would be hurt, but Carol deliberately invited me to humiliate me. I left the place bawling and howling. My breakup pain bounced back. It would be an understatement to say that it was difficult. It was the most traumatic phase of my life, the lowest point I would say. Luckily, I graduated with a good grade and got into a good hospital with hectic duty hours. I barely got time to think about anything. I deliberately kept myself busy. On off days, I moved on. Years later, I met my husband at work. He's the board member of the hospital chain. At work, we dated for 4 years and got married. And now we are proud parents of 2 kids. Fast forward to a week ago when I got a call from an unknown number. I answered the call, and the person identified herself as Carol. Even after hearing her name, it took me a few seconds to realize she was my sister. P.S. Few of my patients' names are also Carol. I asked her why she called me. She was acting all so sweet, asking about my life and all. The Carol I know, she won't spare a second on me without any motive. I said, "Cut the crap and say what do you want?" She remained silent for a moment and said, "Actually, I need help. My husband, Smith, has gotten into trouble. A patient got post-surgery allergy, and the hospital might sack him." I was like, "What can I do about it?" She said that Smith worked at one of the hospital chains whose board member is my husband, so my husband could save him from any severe punishment. By then, I had zoned out. I snapped at her not to call me ever again, and we ain't going to help them. I didn't know that Smith was working for the same hospital chain as me. He was working at a different location. I looked up at the employee portal of the hospital and found Smith, but his current status showed suspended. I wanted to discuss this with my husband, but I didn't want to dig out my past, so I let this slide. 2 days back, my mom showed up at my door. Felt like I had seen a ghost. I cut them off since Carol's engagement day. She hugged me and cried, saying it was so good to see me after so many years. But I knew that her underlying motive behind all the sweetness was to save Smith's ass. My husband was home at that time. He heard out Mom's plea for helping her golden son-in-law. My husband said, "Smith is accused of medical negligence, and there's an ongoing investigation against him." He said there's nothing he could do, and even if he could, he won't do it. He doesn't exercise his power for personal benefit. My mom bit her lips and left without saying a word. Yesterday, my husband came back from work and said that Smith's investigation had been concluded. He would be sacked from his job, but my husband has the power of letting him retain his medical license against a hefty penalty amount. He said he could ask the other board members to go lenient on Smith and not forward his case to state healthcare for further investigation. Now I'm at a fix. Should I forget my humiliation and help Smith, or should I make him pay the price of his deeds? I mean, being a doctor, know how difficult it is to get a medical degree, and losing the license is the worst thing that happened to a doctor. Update 1. There was no need to post it here and get the opinion of you guys. What Carol and my mother did after the day had made it clear that they don't deserve any help. They are anything but narcissistic. Carol and Mom have been hurling abuses at me on social media. I don't use Facebook much. This week when I opened it, I found I was tagged on several posts by Carol where she called me vindictive for framing her husband. She has written a long post that I was jealous of her because Smith had dumped me and married her, and I was doing all this to avenge my betrayal. My mom had also jumped on the bandwagon and said that I had abused them and cut them off because I couldn't stand Smith getting married to Carol. Extended family has taken their side and commented that I had taken revenge too far by ripping off Smith's livelihood. Even Smith has commented that I was delusional and that he never loved me and had never proposed to me. He had always loved Carol. Like WTF. I immediately untagged myself and blocked them. I told my husband not to spare Smith from any of the charges. In fact, he should be punished to the maximum for each of his felonies. My husband gave me a smirking look and said he had never seen me this angry. So Smith was officially sacked from the hospital, and his case has been forwarded to the state healthcare department for license cancellation. So a fresh investigation would be conducted by the government body, and if he is found guilty of the charges that the hospital is claiming, he would lose his license and also get prison time. That's like a cherry on the cake. We'll update as the situation progresses. Right now, I'm enjoying the drama with a basket of popcorn. Yum yum. Edit. Small clarification. Carol and my mom were not added to my social media account. The thing is, I have an open account so anybody could tag me in their post. I had not blocked them earlier because 15 years ago I wasn't using social media. Now they are blocked from social media and also my life. Update 2. How low can a person stoop? Now I know. So Smith showed up at my workplace. Like I said, he worked for the same hospital chain as me but a different location. He posed himself as a patient and came inside my chamber. He knew that there was no way I would have met him if he had come to see me. I immediately asked him to leave. He said he has paid a fee to consult me, so as a doctor I should treat him. Fair enough. I listened to his problems. Meanwhile, I swiftly switched on the voice recorder on my phone. I did this so that he couldn't trap me in another mess. And glad I did. He was faking his health condition, that he has gotten flu and all. I acted professional and gave him the medication as per his symptoms, but he wasn't ready to leave and unnecessarily asked stupid questions. He started flirting. I asked him to stop and leave. He said, "I wanted to apologize to you long back. I didn't intend to hurt you, but your sister trapped me and made me sleep with her. Then she blackmailed me to marry her. Else she would press molestation charges on me." I asked him to stop right there because all he spoke was complete BS. I could have called the security on him, but I was damn enjoying his desperateness. Revenge is so sweet, I tell you. I heard him out with a satisfied smile. He went on to say, "I know you still love me. That's why you're still hurt and want to take your revenge. Honestly, I still feel for you. I regret marrying Carol. If you can convince your husband to save me from prison time, I promise I'm going to leave Carol and be your lover. You don't need to leave your husband, but we can secretly have our own thing." That douchebag had the audacity to say this. I burst out in laughter and called security on him and asked him to leave. He had no idea that he was being recorded. The disappointment on his face was so satisfying. He thought he convinced me. Lol. I texted Carol and wanted to send her the recordings of her low-life husband. I said, "Your loser husband visited my clinic posing as a patient." She said, "I know. He tells me everything. We also know that you still love him. I can let you sleep with him for a night if you can save his license and prison time." Her response blew my mind. No point talking to her any further. They're together in this dirty game. I told my husband about this and he was aghast. He said we could have sued them for offering bribes, but it would dig out my painful past. I said, let him handle one charge at a time, but I'm going to do my bit to extract my revenge. I added Carol, Smith, my mom, and other relatives on Facebook. Carol and Smith accepted it at once. Maybe they took it to be a positive sign for me. Then I wrote a long post about how Carol, Smith, and my mom had been trying to manipulate me to help Smith skip prison time. I attached the screenshot of the conversation with Carol. I also turned the voice recordings into a still video with Smith and Carol's picture with the voice running in the background and uploaded it. That post just blew up with comments. I blocked Carol, Smith, and Mom because I knew they would retaliate. My extended family and relatives expressed their disgust about Carol offering to let Smith hook up with me to get away with his negligence. Carol and my mom tried to contact me, but I had blocked their calls and voicemails. I spent the whole of yesterday and today reading the comments on the post. People have gone next level trolling Carol and Smith. My weekend couldn't be better. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Discovered my wife was cheating, and my son wasn't mine, so I got revenge by exposing everything. I, 34, recently divorced my ex-wife, 29F, because she cheated on me and destroyed everything we struggled to build together. I met my wife at a bar for a friend's birthday. It wasn't like we went there to relax. We attended my friend's birthday hangout, and she only tagged along with her friend who knew the celebrate at the hangout. We got along well and I liked her. After the party, we exchanged contacts, and I offered to give her and her friend a ride home. From that night, we became close and chatted occasionally online. During the first few months I knew her, we didn't see each other because I had a girlfriend then, and my wife and I were only friends. But after my ex-girlfriend broke up with me, my wife and I became close, and in no time we were inseparable. We ended up dating for 2 years plus, and we married. In the first year of our marriage, everything was beautiful and pleasing. We both worked hard and tried our best to keep everything rolling. But in the second year of our marriage, my wife had to stop working because she became pregnant, and her pregnancy had a lot of complications. The complications were so much that I feared the child would not make it, but thankfully she gave birth to a healthy baby. Throughout the time she stayed home to rest, I worked morning and night to ensure I raised enough money to pay the bills and take care of other necessary things, including getting baby stuff. Fast forward to after she gave birth. My wife insisted that she remain home to nurse the baby for 6 months before she resumed work. Even though this meant more responsibility on my shoulder, I agreed to it. I did all of this because I loved my wife and the baby and did not want her to feel uncomfortable. I sacrificed so much, believing that I was making life easier for my wife, but I was only fooling myself and working hard for nothing. Most people say that when their wives cheat, there are always cues, but even as I share my story, I'm still shocked that my wife could cheat on me under my nose. I will also say I blame myself because I should have been more vigilant, but I didn't see any signs because I trusted her so much and did not think she would cheat on me. It was even more painful that after 4 years of being married to the woman I thought loved me, I discovered she had been cheating on me from our first year of marriage. The day I found out, I accidentally stumbled upon some intimate voicemails on our home line, and after listening to all of them, I was broken. So broken that I could not stand up from the ground where I sat at first. When I heard her voice, I thought there were messages she had left her office since they went way back. Aside from recognizing her voice, I also recognized our next-door neighbor's voice, and the shocking part was he was a pastor and was flirting with my wife. He is the kind of religious church pastor who talks to everyone he meets about God and the rest. He'd even make you feel like some sinner if you didn't listen to him. This was his personality. If I say hearing the intimate voicemails between him and my wife came as a shock, it's an understatement. Another shocking thing was that they kept mentioning my son's name in their conversations, and this neighbor of mine asked after my son almost every time he sent a voicemail. And I had a stomach-churning feeling that there was something I didn't know about. By this time, my son was almost 3 years old, and all the thoughts of me not being his biological father crossed my mind. So I secretly conducted a paternity test that same week, and when the results came out, I was shattered. We were not a match. It felt like a bad dream, and I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't because it was reality. Meanwhile, my attitude towards my wife had totally changed. I was literally like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and I wanted to confront her and kick her and her baby out of the house, but I came up with a better plan. A plan that would publicly humiliate her and bring her infidelity to the limelight. For days after I got the paternity test results, I lied to my wife that I had been promoted at the office, and she was so excited. So to mark my promotion, I suggested that we throw a small party and invite our close neighbors, her parents, and my parents to come and celebrate with me, and she agreed. We made the necessary preparations, and I invited the neighbors myself, including her affair partner. On D-Day, 2 days after her parents and my parents came as I had invited them, and her affair partner with his wife and daughter came too. To mock him, I asked him to do an opening prayer for our party, and he did that with glee. I had already collected evidence of their affair, including phone records and voicemail transcripts. The party started on a good note, and everyone who came congratulated me for the promotion, LOL. While everyone was drinking and gisting, I asked the DJ I hired to change the song to my preferred song, and I paid him extra to keep it playing no matter how everyone reacted. My preferred song was a compilation of all the voicemails between my wife and my neighbor. When the audio started, nobody understood what was happening until my wife recognized her voice and her app recognized his voice. Not just that, the app's wife recognized her husband's voice, and all hell broke loose. She created a scene and hit him continuously in the presence of everyone, and he could not even defend himself. On the other hand, my wife's face turned pale as she froze while the whole drama between the app and his wife was going on. I called everyone's attention and told them my wife had something important to tell me and her family, and she was confused. Her eyes were already filled with tears, and she could not even look her disappointed parents in the eye. When I told her to go ahead and tell everyone who her son's biological father was, her eyes widened, and she started stuttering. At that point, everyone was quiet, and everyone's eyes were on my wife, including the app's wife. At this point, I was so mad and could not contain my anger anymore. I yelled at her, and she hesitated. She mentioned her app's name, and everyone gasped. The app's wife fell to the ground in disbelief, and people had to rush to her. At the same time, my wife went on her knees and told me she could explain. She said something about her app coming over to preach to her on a particular day, and it happened so when she found out she was pregnant for him, the only thing she could do was pin the pregnancy on me as her husband, and she didn't tell me because she would hurt my feelings. But as time passed, she and her app got close and fell in love. On the other hand, her app wanted to be in his son's life, so she told him she would tell her son who his biological father was when he turned 18. Hearing this even broke me, and people began to yell at her, calling her names for being so cruel. Her parents left shamefully, and I threw her and her son out of the house. It's quite painful that she could actually do that to me after all my years of sacrifices and love. The irony is I have listened to so many stories of mismatched paternity results on this channel, but I believed my wife was faithful and could never do something like that, lol. So much for trust. Anyways, we divorced, but before we divorced, she got a handful from our neighbors. The couple of times she had come to beg me to give her another opportunity, my female neighbors would quickly rush their children away from her whenever they saw her, like she was some closet monster. As for her app, his wife could not stand the shame, so she divorced him. I heard something else happened at his church when members learned about his infidelity and child, but it's not my business. He also moved out of the neighborhood after his marriage because he could not stand the looks of disgust and disappointment from the same neighbors he used to preach to. It's barely a year since this happened, and I'm still healing. I advise every father out there or expecting father to conduct a paternity test at birth or before birth if you have doubts. This is the worst kind of heartbreak I have ever experienced, and I hope I heal entirely from it. As for relationships, I doubt I'll be in one anytime soon. I'll rather focus on myself and my career and maybe start a business YouTube channel that I've always wanted to. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Discovered my wife's year-long affair when our kid's bus driver accidentally revealed their secret. The desperate voicemail she left him after I kicked her out. At the time of this story, my wife and I were together for 10 years and had 2 sons under the age of 6. My wife was very close to her aging mother and made sure to include her in our family life, even though she lived in a retirement home. Once a week, we'd all go visit her and bring a collection of our sons' toys for them to show her. Soon thereafter, my wife encouraged the boys to make gifts for their teachers and bus driver with Grandma's help. At the same time, she started taking her mom out to sightsee and spend some one-on-one time together. The routine was she'd get the kids off the bus and then start getting ready to go out. Over time, she started seeing her mom twice a week by herself and every other Sunday with all of us. This was a lot, but even still, her mom would always say how much she missed us. I wondered how that could be if she was taking her out all the time, but I just dismissed the thought. One day, my wife had gotten the kids off the bus and came back inside, cheerful as ever. She skipped upstairs to get ready for another outing with her mom. My boy asked to watch a show, so I grabbed my wife's phone off the charger and noticed several missed calls from my son's bus driver. They were both home safe and sound, so I couldn't imagine why there would be so many missed calls from him. I tried to call him back but found that my wife changed the lock on her phone. Instinct took over as I downloaded an app on my phone to disguise my number as my wife's. I set the call to record before I dialed his number. As soon as he answered, he said, "Hi, love. Are you ready for the special date I promised you?" I hung up as soon as I heard this. I went upstairs to find my wife as she got ready, and she looked ravishing. You could tell she was going on a special date. As soon as she saw me, she started downplaying how nice she looked and explained that her mom wanted her to take pride in her appearance, no matter what the occasion. I played the recording of the bus driver's voice, and her perfume bottle fell from her hand, smashing to pieces on the floor. She immediately became desperate, begging me to just hold on a minute and listen to her, but I still grabbed the car keys. On my way out with the boys, I insisted that she stay and never come back. She was too panicked to cry, just hyperventilating and saying she would have nowhere to stay because her home was with me and the boys. I refused to give in. I called the bus driver again, this time on speakerphone. He answered in a weary tone. I told him I knew what was going on and he needed to come pick up my wife because she belonged to him now. He quickly told me to slow down, that he was married and he didn't want to get involved in any drama. My wife's face fell when she realized just how bad her situation was. I just shrugged and hung up while my wife started redialing his number in vain. Just before I left, I heard her leave a voicemail telling him he needed to come pick her up and get her a place to stay because this was all his fault. I suppose she continued calling him late into the night until she found his wife on social media and publicly begged her to tell him to call her because she needed to speak with him emergently. This obviously raised suspicions that led to her discovering the truth. My wife had been dating and sleeping with our children's bus driver for an entire year. I had no idea it had been going on at all, let alone for so long. I felt like an idiot for failing to look into my wife's whereabouts sooner, but I truly believed she was spending time with her mom. She was, but only very rarely. App's wife slandered my wife's name through the school and all over town. App was so ashamed and willing to do whatever it took to gain his wife's forgiveness. He ghosted my wife and even stopped getting on social media. He tried in vain to prove loyalty to his wife in the hopes things could go back to normal. They never did for any of us. My wife was mortally embarrassed that her lover had given her up at the first sign of trouble and that in her attempts to get his help, she broke his family apart and made things worse for herself. I also ghosted her until a visitation schedule was made and I was awarded primary custody. Her desperate affair cost her reputation, self-confidence, and family. She isn't the same as she was, and I doubt she'll ever be. I'm thankful I'm not the one that has to figure out how to live with myself without my kids because of some stupid mistake that shouldn't have happened. App even apologized to me, explaining that when he started seeing my wife, he was in a bad place in his own marriage. He justified seeing my wife by deciding that he only needed to rely on someone emotionally. Emotional support turned into physical, and then before he knew it, they were living a double life and got caught red-handed. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My stepsister ruined my wedding by proposing to my fiancé and getting married. But karma hit hard when she lost her job and husband, so she came back crawling, begging for my help. I was supposed to be married to my boyfriend 3 years and a month ago, but my stepsister thought it would be fun to propose to my fiancé on my wedding day. Joanna, 25, and I are stepsisters. My mom passed away when a fire broke out at her workplace. My dad got a call from the hospital, and when he reached there, he got the news of Mom's demise. There, he met my stepmom, who was also there by the news of her husband's demise. Her husband worked in the same company as Mom. Dad and stepmom connected over their grief. They soon started hanging out at each other's place and outside. Joanna and I are of the same age. We were 3 when this happened. Since we are of the same age, people used to ask our parents if we were twins. Dad and stepmom played along and said yes. We are not identical twins. In fact, they told us the same thing, that we were twins, until we were 12. Joanna and I shared a good sibling bond until our parents revealed the truth to us. After that, Joanna got distant from me and grew resentful of me. She, in fact, turned into a soft bully. She joined forces with the children who bullied me at school. Though we were of the same age, Joanna was stronger than me and could handle bullies really well. She was more towards the extrovert side, and I am a nerdy introvert. Joanna was not an outright bully but definitely toxic and mean. She would pass sarcastic comments at me for my poor dressing sense and communication skills. Our parents tried to enforce a civil relationship between us, if not friendship. No matter how much they tried, we just couldn't bond. She would try to boss me around and I would push back. The situation was neutralized only after I moved out, which was quite early. I moved out when I was 15. After that, we only met twice a year when I went home during breaks. She moved out when she was 20, and after that, we met only twice in the last 5 years. Similar to our nature, we chose our professions. I'm a lab technician at a research institute, and she's a flight attendant. All this doesn't matter. The fact that she is gorgeous and better groomed than me is all that matters to men. Nick, 27, and I have been seeing each other for 3 years. Last fall, Nick went down on his knees and asked me to marry him. I screamed a yes because why not? I loved him so dearly. He was the most precious thing in my life. This spring, we planned our wedding. When it comes to planning an event, I am not so good at it, so when Joanna requested that she wanted to plan it for me, I couldn't be happier. I'd let her take the lead. I am sure something would have happened during the planning that sparked their relationship because they had not met before. 2 months ago, we had our engagement, and there we announced our wedding. That was the first time Joanna had met Nick. Nick was my only proper boyfriend. Introverts and relationships are not a good combination. Nick seemed different. He was ready to invest in a meaningful, long relationship. So, after dating for 3 years, when he proposed, I was elated. He wanted to marry right away, but I wanted a spring wedding, so we delayed it this far. I didn't tell anyone about my plans until this January when we sent out an invite for our engagement. The day after our engagement, Joanna calls me and asks if she could plan my wedding. I was shocked because we didn't have good bonding while growing up. She said she wants to make up for her behavior. I said that's okay, you don't need to do this, we're not teenagers anymore. She said she wanted to do it because she has more time than me, and she can pull her contacts to get us some thrilling discounts. I agreed because I have busy schedules. It was during the wedding preps that she started hitting on Nick. This is my theory, though. I noticed some changes in Nick's behavior. I confronted him, and he said it was due to work. He's not getting enough sleep. He was working late. That could be a lie. Might be busy and tired. The day before the wedding, the event manager gave us the tour trail of the wedding arrangements. Joanna was with us. The event manager was her friend. That was the only time I noticed their closeness. She was giggling and talking to him as if they had known each other for ages. I had an eerie feeling and wanted to confront them right there, but then I stopped, thinking I might ruin the atmosphere. The wedding was the next day, and then Joanna would be out. It would be just me and Nick, so I let this slide. On the day of the wedding, I didn't see Joanna. I thought she must be busy outside taking care of the arrangements. When I was walking down the aisle, I saw her sitting in the corner. She looked sad. I didn't bother to think about her. That moment was not for me to think about her. I walked down. Nick was smiling, but he didn't seem to be as happy as I expected. His hands were sweaty. I asked him what happened. He said nothing, just a little nervous. As I was standing at the altar, I could see Joanna's downhearted face. She was sobbing. I got confused because we ain't that close that she would sob at my wedding. Plus it wasn't happy tears. She looked miserable, as if she hadn't slept in the night. The pastor began the process by asking if anyone had a reason to object to this wedding. Joanna stood up and started crying profusely. All the eyes fell on her. I was frozen. I gestured at her, asking what the hell she was doing, but she was not looking at me. She was glued to Nick. The pastor asked her the reason for her objection. She knelt down and joined her hands as if she was praying. She said she is madly in love with Nick and cannot see him getting married to anyone but her. I yelled at Joanna to stop. I rushed down the altar and screamed at her to stop this nonsense. Mom and Dad also stood up and tried to lift her up, but the damage was already done. This was still fine because Joanna has always been mean to me. I know she can go to any lengths to ruin my life. My world stopped when I looked back at Nick, and he was also crying badly. He was sitting on the floor with his face buried in his palms. I rushed to him and asked him what's the matter. He didn't say anything. Joanna came running to him, lifted up his face from her hands, and said, "This is our last chance. Nick, you have to speak up. If not now, it's going to be never. You'll be stuck to this woman. She's not going to leave you easily." I pulled Joanna's arms and asked what was going on. "Is it some kind of prank? Then better stop because I'm not liking it." It was evident to everyone what was happening there. People were glued to the drama. They got hot topics to gossip about for a month. He wiped her tears with his sleeves, looked at me, and said he had fallen in love with Joanna during the wedding preps. After listening to all this, I could not stand there. My legs were shaking so badly. It was beyond humiliation. I felt I was ripped naked in front of the crowd. Our parents chipped in and took us outside. We had already given enough gossip to the people. I was crying so badly that I couldn't even walk. Dad escorted me out while Joanna's mom was holding her arms and consoling her. Why on earth does she need to be consoled? Nick and Joanna confessed to sleeping together a week before the wedding. They decided to consider it a one-time thing and move on, but they couldn't stop seeing each other. So Nick's late-night work was actually his cheating trip to Joanna's place. They, in fact, slept together the night before the wedding. Nick said Joanna was so gorgeous he just couldn't resist. I couldn't believe I was about to marry this scumbag. Though our parents were present, no one said a word. They preferred to remain neutral and stay out of it. I was done listening to their love story, so I ran into the changing room to grab my bag and car keys to leave the place. I went inside and saw myself in the mirror wearing my wedding dress, and I cannot help but break down. I was having a severe meltdown. Then Joanna entered the room. I screamed at her to get out. She said yes, I will get out of here soon because my would-be Nick is waiting for me outside. I called her names. She laughed at this and said, yeah, even Nick calls me that on bed. I wanted to smack her for the filth she was spitting. She said, how could you imagine that Nick would marry you after seeing my curvaceous body? Have you seen yourself? You look like flat tires, spongy, and your dressing sense just sucks. I wonder how Nick even fell for you in the first place. He is just too handsome for you. She slammed the door and left. I picked up myself and drove off the venue. On the way, I realized, where do I go? I have been living with Nick at his place. Surely I can't go there. I called up my friend and asked her if I could stay with her for a few days until I put my life together. She gladly took me in. The next day, I got a text from a Packers guy asking where my stuff needed to be shipped. Nick had hired a Packers company to get rid of my stuff. I was caught off guard because I had no place to keep my stuff. I called up Dad, and he offered to let me use the garage to keep my stuff. Amidst the feeling of betrayal and pain, I was house hunting. My homies were my support system during this trauma. They helped me find a place, set up my stuff, and be there for me whenever I needed them. My friends have helped me enough to cope with this. I don't want to be more needy and scare them off. My wounds are still fresh, and I need someone to hear me out. I have enrolled for therapy, but it is monthly once. Hence, I am writing this post as a self-help therapy update, thanks to the ones who tried to understand my situation. However, the ones commenting that it was my fault that I chose a cheater, how could I not see this coming? Why did I let Joanna plan my wedding? And other ridiculous questions. If anyone is going through a heartbreak, do you console them or do you go around grilling them as if it was my fault that he cheated on me? I don't need to give any explanation to anyone. These answers are for those genuine questions on my post. People asked how I got so close to Joanna that I invited her to the engagement and let her plan my wedding. Joanna and I got into talking terms after I moved out of the house. I was not so keen on inviting Joanna to my engagement, but my dad wanted it to be a full family affair. Joanna was also not so interested in attending my engagement, but Dad said this was the first event in the family, so everyone had to be present. When it comes to planning the wedding, I have covered that bit in the initial post. I didn't have time, and she had some contacts in the event management space. And everyone who was saying, how could I not know my fiancé was a cheater? So to them, if everyone could really predict if their partners are cheaters or not, there wouldn't be any divorce in the world. Negative people are all around the world, few, but you know what? I don't care because you reap what you sow. Coming to the updates, Joanna and Nick got married last week at the same venue. Look at her audacity. She emailed me the invitation card. It was not an invite but a way to show that she got him. I ignored and blocked her. I showed it to Dad. He was the one advocating we are a family. Though I was pretending to be strong, I was tearing up from inside. My friends came over with drinks and tacos to cheer me up. I got badly wasted that night to ease my pain. My friends suggested that I plan revenge on Joanna. They came up with some stupid and funny ones to lighten my mood. One of my friends was smoking up, and an idea clicked in my mind. Joanna is a smoker, not cigarettes, but weed. I know what you guys are thinking. Who cares? Well, I don't, but her employer does. She's a flight attendant, and she's not allowed to have any of those substances. It puts passengers' lives at risk. Apparently, they are lifesavers. Joanna, a lifesaver? My ass. My friend and I wondered how she was not getting caught because the airlines run regular tests on their employees. One of my friends suggested that we tip off her employer and let them figure it out. I am not sure if it was going to work, but I decided to give it a shot. I had to do something to pull my revenge. I sent an anonymous mail to the airlines with Joanna's details that she has been smoking up during work hours. I got a reply that someone would reach out to me to get further details. The next day I got a call, and they asked for detailed information. I made it up and said I cannot disclose my identity, but a few days back when I was flying with their airlines I found Joanna high on something, and her eyes were red. I asked them to conduct their own investigation before sacking her. They thanked me and hung up. I have very low hopes that it would turn out in my favor because I didn't reveal my identity. They might consider this to be a hoax call. Update 2. Hey there, folks. I know it's been 2 years since I wanted to detach myself from my past, so I ignored updating here too, and eventually, I forgot about this. I was getting a lot of messages from people asking what happened after the complaint with the airlines, so here's all the update you need. After complaining about Joanna to her employer, I had a mixed feeling that I shouldn't have ripped off her livelihood. I mean, it takes 2 people to cheat. It was Nick's fault too. Eventually, I started moving on, thinking that I got rid of a cheater. Better before the wedding than later. I took a transfer to a different city to start a new life. Almost 2 years later, which was last month, I got a call from Dad. He wanted to meet me. I didn't want to, but he said he was in town, so I agreed. He said he needed my help with Joanna. Like what? He told me that Joanna had lost her job because someone tipped off her employer that she was smoking up during work hours. They did a random test and she was caught. Upon being grilled, she confessed that she had been fooling the authorities for many years. She had contacts in the lab department who would manipulate her test results and make them clean. She basically used to sleep with that testing guy. These charges not only cost her job but also her profession. No airline is now going to hire her after this. The airlines didn't report her to the cops because it would have damaged their reputation. My tip-off worked, but now I didn't care. I had moved on. When Nick got to know about all this, he lost his mind. She tried to save her ass by saying she was being framed by her colleagues because people were jealous of her good performance. I sighed on the bed. Sure, Nick tried to stick around for a while, but she got herself wasted in alcohol and other substances. He left her. Eventually, she lost her job and her husband too. She borrowed money from Dad to rent a place for herself, but instead of getting a place for herself, she wasted that money partying. She was living on her friend's couch, who informed Dad about Joanna's condition before throwing her out. Dad brought her home and took her to rehab. He is claiming that she has gotten better and now wants to restart her life. Dad wanted me to check with my contacts and get her an office job. I refused to help her in any way. Dad was disappointed that I turned him down, but he said he understood. After he left, my guilty conscience kicked in. No one knows that I was the one who got her sacked. I don't know what to do. Update 3. This is probably going to be the last update because I'm done with this saga and want to move on. I helped my sister to get a job and made it even, call it whatever, but I felt nice after helping her. However, no one can help a self-destructor. I got her a job at a publishing house. She started stealing the books and selling them at a black market at a cheap price. She was caught and thrown away. My friend was about to report her, but I talked her out of this, saying that it would bring down the reputation of the publication house. Dad has given up on Joanna and kicked her out of the house. Now she's on her own. God knows what she is doing with her life. This Christmas, I went back to my hometown to meet my friends. I visited home, but only for an hour during the mass. I bumped into Nick. He was right beside me. The hallway was so crowded that we were forced to walk together. He said hello to me, and we got into a conversation. I tried to be mature and spoke to him politely. While leaving the church, he approached again and asked me for a few minutes. We went aside, and he said sorry. He said sleeping with Joanna was the worst mistake, and then to rectify one, he committed another by marrying her. She was guilt-tripping him that he used her physically, so he thought he should do the right thing and marry her. I said it's fine. I have moved on. He asked me if I was okay to accompany him to an art gallery the next day. I had no other plan, so I said yes. It was a normal visit. We hung out like friends, and none of us made a move. The same night, I came back home. My phone was discharged during the travel. When I switched on the phone, there were 20+ messages from Nick. It was all about, "Did you reach safely? Text me after reaching. I miss you. When can we meet next?" I saw all of them and ignored them. The next few days were the same. He was constantly checking on me. He said he was missing me and wished we could get back together. Then ultimately, I told him I had moved on and didn't want to keep in touch with him. He said, if I was not interested, why did I go to the art gallery with him? I said, "Dude, grow up." It didn't mean anything. His ego kicked in and he hung up the call. A week later, I got a call at 2 a.m. in the night. I picked up, thinking it might be some emergency. Nick was there on the other side. He said, "Nothing serious. Just wanted to check on you." I was yelling at him when my boyfriend, who was sleeping next to me, took the phone and gave him the peace of his mind. My boyfriend is a sleep enthusiast, and he would bring wrath on anyone who disturbed his sweet slumber. I won't repeat what he said, but after that day, Nick never bothered me. He understood that I had actually moved on. I didn't tell Nick that I had a boyfriend. I didn't feel the need to inform him. He's no one to me. I don't want to talk much about my current boyfriend. Don't want to jinx that again. All I want to say is I'm glad Nick found solace in Joanna because of his cheating. I got someone so much better. Heartbreak is never the end. I am going to delete this post after a few days. I wanted to give closure to all those sweet people who have been checking on me. Thank you for all the love. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My wife begged me to sleep with her friend, to spice things up. Finally, I agreed, but found out my wife was already cheating with a friend's husband. I am 35, married to Ellie, F34, for 5 years. We're working individuals and just an average couple. We worked hard on weekdays and got smashed on weekends. That has been our life. However, it has steadily changed in the last 3 months. One Sunday, we were just relaxing by ourselves when suddenly my wife started showing pictures of her friends and asked me to rate them. I looked at her in surprise. She asked me to take it as a sport. It would be fun. I took it as casual fun, so we both indulged in this creepy stuff of rating her friends. I gave her the disclaimer that it was just for fun and I didn't mean anything. She patted me in assurance. In that game, I ended up giving the highest score to her friend Lily, F33. My wife and Lily were gym partners before becoming friends. Later, Lily's husband, Joshua, M36, and I met, and all 4 of us got along well. We usually hang out together. A couple of days later, out of the blue, my wife asked me if I would sleep with Lily if given a chance. I was taken aback. I reminded her of the disclaimer I gave before playing that game. I know how women are. They're experts in building a castle out of thin air. She calmed me down, stating that she wasn't digging on me. She said that if I find her hot, I should get to explore with her. I was stunned. I clarified that I didn't find Lily hot. It's just that she was better looking than most of the other friends of Ellie. I know, shallow, but it was just a game. She insisted for the next few days that I should at least have one wild encounter with Lily. She reasoned I would eventually hook up with her if I had any minutest feelings for her. She thought it was better to satisfy my desire openly than cheat on her behind my back. I told her I never intended to sleep with Lily. I'd never seen Lily in that light. However, she didn't seem to buy it at all. A few days later, one of the weekends, we were having a house party at Lily and Joshua's place. It was just 4 of us. I and my wife, Joshua, and his wife, Lily. We were bored with the games and decided to have a movie night. I don't know whose plan it was to watch 2+2, but we ended up watching that crap. For people who haven't watched this movie, it's about couples swapping to spice up the relationship. As the after effect of the film and the alcohol, all 4 of us looked at each other to see if there could be a possibility of the same between us. But thank God nothing happened, and we all burst out in hysteric laughter. I almost forgot that incident as soon as Monday kicked in. However, the same wasn't true for my wife. A few days into the week, while having a casual dinner table conversation, she brought up our experience of that night. She hinted that it would have been great to try a couple swap. I smirked and laughed at it, thinking it all to be a joke. My laughter turned into a shock when she said that she was serious. I asked if she already had someone in mind to explore this idea of a couple swap. She said, "Well, we can explore it with Joshua and Lily." I looked severely at her suggestion and said she couldn't be serious about that. I declined it, saying it would ruin two families, ours and theirs. She nodded and said that she wasn't that serious either, but that movie had put an idea into her head, and that she would get over it in a while. I acknowledged it and moved on from that discussion. However, as time passed, she insisted we spice up our married life. It is understandable that after being together with the same person for 7 years, sexual life does become routine, but that's the game of marriage. You trade off thrill for more meaningful feelings like stability, love, and care. I asked her up front if she wanted to have an open relationship. She outright denied it, suggesting all this just to strengthen our bond and nothing else. I assured her I loved her and didn't want to be anyone else but her. Days passed, but Ellie was stuck to her point. She didn't miss any single opportunity to give me a subtle hint that I should sleep with Lily. One evening, Ellie came excited from the gym. She told me that she had spoken to Lily about my desire. She was surprised to know that Lily and Joshua were also in thought about exploring their sexual life. I flustered. I asked her what made her discuss this topic with Lily. She said it was normal for women to discuss bed with their friends. I don't know, guys, maybe I'm just old school. I'd never discussed mine with any of my guy friends. I had done it in the past, maybe in some casual relationship, but never in detail, especially about my wife. She added that she told Lily about how I thought her to be hot. And guess what? Lily blushed. She said this with a sheer sense of achievement. I shrugged and said it was normal for anyone to blush to know that someone finds them hot. But she said that maybe Lily also desired to hook up with me. To be honest, the way she pestered, I sensed that something was fishy. So I sleuthed her phone. I checked her chats and social media account, but it was all clean except for spam messages from some random guy. I felt guilty for suspecting her. Ellie has a very cheerful and bubbly personality who likes to speak her heart without a filter, and I loved her for that. I was actually being awful to her since the time she started nagging me to sleep with Lily. Upon finding her phone to be clean, I hated myself for being mean to her. I thought she loved me to the extent that she was okay to let me sleep with someone. I felt blessed. Over the next month, we regularly met Joshua and Lily over drinks or dinner, sometimes in our houses and outside. It was just usual. However, what was unusual, I actually felt infatuated with Lily, and there were several reasons for that. Whenever we met, Ellie would subtly tease me, and sometimes Joshua too joined in teasing me while Lily blushed. All this while with intense eye contact. I mean, who wouldn't get butterflies in this situation? But every time this conversation came up, I made it clear that I didn't intend to put my finger on Lily. Literally, the reason why I'm writing this is because I'm at a fix now. Next week, we have a long weekend because the bank holiday falls on a Friday. My wife and Lily had planned that we all get a mini vacation at a beach resort. We have done this kind of mini trip with Joshua and Lily, but it is different this time. My wife, Ellie, insists I sleep with Lily on this vacation. I've adamantly declined it, but she says we can always retreat if things are uncomfortable. I asked Ellie what if she gets hurt and possessive about it. She said that we can't know our true selves until we try. I don't know what to do. I would be lying if I said that I'm not thrilled, but I'm equally nervous. This would ruin my marriage, but my wife thinks it will help us bond. Well, she says that it is way more common than I think. I know that couples try out different means to spice up their life, but no one talks about it openly. So I don't know how it works. Looking for suggestions from people who have explored this and how the experience was. Should we really involve a third human being to spice up our life? Update 1. Hey people, you know what? You guys were right. She was indeed cheating on me already. After getting some sound advice from a few of you, I decided to play along and see where it leads. Of course, I didn't want to sleep with Lily, but I pretended in front of Ellie that I was okay to try this. I wanted to see what would unfold once I consented to her. She was delighted that I had finally agreed. On the supposed weekend, all 4 of us drove to the resort, which was 60 miles away. On the way, while Ellie and Joshua were enjoying the scenic beauty, I noticed Lily was lost and nervous for most of the journey. I was also not feeling great, but I was somehow faking it. I had no evidence of foul play, just my gut feeling. I couldn't pass the verdict just with my instincts. It was Friday, and we reached there somewhere in the afternoon. The plan was to sunbathe until the evening, attend a party arranged by the resort, and later we would explore our darkest fantasy. In short, it was all arranged for me and Lily to hook up. After freshening up, we relished a decadent lunch and spent the rest of the afternoon slumbering under the sun. I tried speaking to Lily privately, but she didn't acknowledge that she was uncomfortable. She smirked, saying she was looking forward to the night. The party was wild, but I tried to stay in control to be alert for the next action plan. Sensing my anxiety and alertness, Joshua comforted me, saying it was all fine and Lily wanted to have fun with me. She was attracted to my physique. Now that I know the truth, I feel disgusted at his move. I didn't know what time it was when we left the party, and I found myself in a room with Lily. We both sat awkwardly for I don't know how long. She broke the ice and asked how we should start. I asked her if we really need to. She stared at me with a confused look. I asked her if she really wanted to sleep with me. She admitted that she had a slight crush on me but never wanted to sleep with me until her husband, Joshua, planted this idea in her head. I sensed something was wrong, so I asked her if she wanted to sleep with me. I was dumbfounded to hear that she was manipulated in a similar way as I was. It started with Ellie telling her about the game in which I rated Lily the highest. Ellie also told Lily we were seeking ways to spice up our married life. The same day, Joshua came home and said he felt blessed to have such a desirable wife that even I wanted to make out with her. Lily thought I told Joshua about all this, but it wasn't me. It was, of course, Ellie who had told him, or it was just their plan. Since then, Joshua has been planting this idea in Lily's mind. He asked her if she would like to make out with me. She denied it multiple times, but he said that it would spice up and strengthen their relationship. She admitted that she liked my physique, but not to the extent that she would sleep with me. I cleared the air that I never wanted to sleep with her. I narrated my side of the story, and she was shocked because all she knew until then was that I wanted her. By then, we knew that it was them. Lily asked Joshua whether he and Ellie would do something similar, to which he denied. He said he wanted Lily to experience it first, and if everything goes well, he'll think. I remember not conversing with Ellie because I didn't want to enter this game. I told her I suspected Ellie of cheating when she pestered me for that hookup and checked her phone, but it came out clean. We decided that it was the best time to uncover the truth. I wanted to bang open the room and confront them immediately, but Lily insisted on catching them red-handed. She was adamant about ruining them. So, on the night we were supposed to be hooking up, we devised a plan to destroy Ellie and Joshua. They both were supposed to be outside waiting for us. We knew they won't indulge in anything at that point because we could quit last moment and walk out of the room. They couldn't take the risk. So when we both went out, we saw them watching something on the iPad. They were sitting coyly but not intimate. We said we had changed our minds and didn't want to hook up. Both turned pale. They asked us what was the reason for backing out. I said we didn't feel right. It wasn't supposed to be forced. They ran short of words to express their disappointment. I told them my client requested a sudden meeting the next day, so we would have to leave early. I asked Ellie to continue the vacation with Lily and Joshua, but none of them wanted to stay further. We drove back home the next morning. All four of us were silent for most of the time during the return journey. After reaching home, I changed and left the house. I drove to a coffee shop away from the house. After an hour of leaving the house, I got a call from Lily that Joshua had also left the house, citing some urgent work. We both knew what his critical work was. Lily said she had asked her another friend to follow Joshua and would update me about their location. Rightly so, they were found at my house. While leaving the house, I told her I'd come home late in the evening, and they couldn't miss this opportunity. I hurriedly drove back to pick Lily up, raging angrily to catch the duo red-handed. I used my key to unlock the apartment, and they were lying naked. Lily was swift to capture their photos while they struggled to wrap themselves up. I raced into the room, threw Ellie's belongings outside the apartment, and asked her to leave the house immediately. They both pleaded with us to listen to them. Joshua kept saying they were trying to experiment like we did last night. I pulled him by his collar and asked him, since when he was my wife? Ellie tried to free him, but I pushed her away. He said that it was the first time they had explored. I choked him harder, grinding my teeth, asking for a confession. I stared at Ellie with a red eye and said I didn't mind rotting in jail by killing that parasite. I made it clear that either of them confesses the truth or I strangle Joshua. Ellie agreed while howling and begged me to stop. They confessed that they had an affair for over a year. They were seen hand in hand by two of my friends and one of Lily's, but fortunately for them, none informed us anything. However, Joshua and Ellie were scared of being exposed someday, so they plotted to involve us eventually in the game of couple swap and legalize their adultery. I asked her how come her phone was clean when I checked it. She sobbed and admitted that they used to communicate only through emails, which she used to sign only when required. They didn't chat often and used that email to communicate regarding the time and location of their meetup. It was just a cold physical relationship between Ellie and Joshua. Lily left the house after hearing everything. Joshua followed her. I asked Ellie to leave the house immediately. She tried to hug me, sobbing and pleading with me. I made it clear that reconciliation is not on the table. She tried to fool me. I couldn't let her run over me. She left the house only when I threatened to involve her parents. I messaged Lily to send me the picture she had taken of them. I forwarded those to Ellie's sister and told her everything. She confirmed that Ellie didn't go to her parents' house. After a week, I emailed her the divorce papers. Since I didn't know her location, the lawyer sent the physical copy to her parents' house. They called me in panic. I looped in Ellie's sister on the call and asked her to narrate everything after receiving the email. Ellie spammed my phone with her pleadings. She used to send me messages earlier asking for a reconciliation, but the frequency increased after the email. Lily, on the other hand, involved her parents in the matter. Lily's father was a businessman, and Joshua handled one of his business units. So when the truth came out, Joshua was kicked out of work, and Lily's father used all his connections to block every possible job for Joshua in his field. It's been a month since the D-Day. My divorce proceedings are on. Ellie is contesting it, asking for a share in my house. I'm distraught with the cheating and the way the duo tried to involve us in the dirty game. I'll update if anything develops else. Consider this the final one. Update 2. I didn't think of updating it, but I've some news. I know some of you would expect me and Lily to get together. No, that didn't happen. Like mentioned earlier, neither I nor Lily wanted to hook up. We both were just fools to be manipulated into it. Gladly, we escaped last minute. My divorce got settled, and Ellie didn't get a penny. My lawyer argued that if she claimed a property share, we would also revise the divorce terms and claim alimony for my mental distraught. I tell you, if you pay your lawyers well enough, they can bargain for good returns. She gave up and signed the papers. I don't remember if I mentioned that Joshua was working at his Phil's company, and with this news he was kicked out. He wasn't able to secure any decent paying job in his field. After leaving my house, Ellie rented a dingy apartment where she offered Joshua to stay with her. However, he declined, stating that his Phil would destroy him further. Besides, he never loved her. Ellie was living under a bubble that Joshua loved her, but he didn't. Joshua clarified that it was all for fun without strings attached, as per their initial agreement. These revelations came out during Lily's divorce, where Joshua confessed that he was manipulated by Ellie. He never loved her. He loved Lily. He begged Lily and her father for a last chance, but they rebuked him and forced him into a divorce. It didn't hurt me to see my ex-wife getting exposed and humiliated in a courtroom. I felt justice was served hot as she deserved. She was abandoned by everyone she knew. Her husband, her lover, her friend, and her family. Her parents and siblings despise her. I don't know about her work status. This kind of news spreads like wildfire. I wanted to send those pictures to some of her colleagues as well, but I held back. I don't know about her present status, but I know she can't afford her previous lifestyle with her income. She jeopardized her stable relationship for a cheap thrill and now got what she deserved. I have enrolled in counseling. I was getting disturbing thoughts about the night Ellie had planned for my hookup. The therapy is helping me move on, but I think it will take some more time to mentally wipe her out. My friends insist I meet other women, but I don't think I'm ready to date. Any advice or tips is highly appreciated. Thanks much. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My older boyfriend pressured me into a threesome with my hot friend. He ignored me the whole time for her, and I later found out he's been engaged to another woman for years. I know I'm probably going to get people yelling at me that I should have never agreed to it and that this is my fault, but I mean, when you have your 18-year-old boyfriend, 23, pressuring and badgering you for months, sometimes you just give in to it. We had the threesome about 2 weeks ago, and I've just been, I don't know, I feel so ugly and like I'm not enough. I think I enjoyed it in the moment. I don't know, but now I'm just done. My best friend is so pretty and just everything I'm not. She's tall, blonde, and athletic. Has the perfect face. I love her. She's amazing. I'm short, black hair, and I'm not fat. I'm just boyer and have thick thighs. Even when I was underweight, I just looked like a stick with tits and too big of an ass. I've always wanted liposuction or something just to get rid of the excess fat, but I just keep replaying it in my head. He had so much fun with her and even forgot about me at times. I'm just not enough for him. Now, every time he messages me, I don't get excited, or when he tries to touch or kiss me, I just shrug him off. Whenever he holds me while we're in bed, I just get nauseous. I really wish I was enough, but I just never am because every man I'm with always wants more. Wants somebody else. I'm just done and needed to vent. I'm sorry. Comments where Opie has replied. Comment. Are you and your friend both 18 because this guy sounds real questionable? I mean, also, if anyone is badgering you for anything regarding sex, that's coercion. So yeah, I'm very happy you are leaving him. You are enough. He's just taking advantage of the fact that you're young, and maybe he preyed on your insecurities. Opie. My best friend is 21. Comment, how long have you known the two of them? Opie. I've known my best friend for about 5-ish years, and I've known my BF since I was 17. I think we only started dating shortly after I turned 18. Comment. No wait, why did she agree? Opie. I'm C to explain this, but she has a sex bucket list and has always wanted to have a threesome. She was iffy at first, but I think he convinced her it was okay and nothing would be different or changed. Comment. You wrote during the threesome your BF was with your BFF more than you, to the point he excluded you from the threesome. Did she do the same, or did she try to include you? Did you guys talk about how you felt after the threesome? How is your friendship with her now? Is everything normal with her? Do you feel the dynamics have changed between your BF and BFF, like their relationship and how they interact with one another has changed as well? Is your BF back to normal? Has he noticed how you have changed and how you feel about the threesome? Communication is key in a relationship, and if this keeps bugging you, it's time to move on. Opie. She included me more than he did, to the point he got a little frustrated. She was openly trying to involve me, and he was just ignoring her. I've told her how I felt. She told me she understands why and how she even felt a little weird about it afterward. Honestly, I feel like we're okay. I mean, she's seen me naked before. I've seen her naked. Like, all that's changed is we've now been sexually intimate, but other than that, she still feels like the same old friend I've had. He's kind of become more and more infatuated with her. I guess he's texting her more, asking me to text her for him to relay messages, talking about her moving in with us, etc. But she's blocked him and told me she doesn't feel right with the way he's behaving. He's noticed, and all he's complained about is how I haven't had sex with him since that night. He asked me if I was jealous, and when I said no, he said, okay, so why won't you touch me? So he's noticed, but he's just more upset I won't have sex with him. I know communication is important, but I just feel kind of worried about telling him how I feel. Stupid, I know. Comment. Time to be single for a bit and work on yourself. You are only 18, you have enough time to do just that. Comment. No surprise that the 23-year-old dude convinced his 18-year-old girlfriend to do something sexual that she didn't want to do. Weird power dynamic, coercion. It hurts to see. Comment, congratulations on discovering who he really is before you get more committed in the relationship. Badgering you for something you clearly didn't want to do is such a big red flag. He doesn't give a damn about you or your feelings, needs, wants. He just wanted a legitimate reason to shag your friend. How is it between you and your friend now? You are good enough, more than good enough, for the right person. He is not that person. Get out now before he destroys your self-worth even further, girl. Comment. Never measure your worth by what a man wants. You are so young, but in time you will learn. Update. I broke up with him. I found out he had another girlfriend whom he has been dating since 2020. She lives in a different city for college, the same city his sister lives in, so every time he was visiting his sister, which was weekly, he was visiting his actual girlfriend/fiancé. I was basically filling her spot until she graduated. And they are basically engaged. I'm so hurt and distraught right now. I'm staying with one of my friends. I blocked him on everything and just want to move on. I'm so upset and hurt right now. I feel so ugly and used. I feel like the worst person in the world for hurting another woman. You really can't trust anybody because while he was making me all these promises of marrying me and loving me, he was doing the same to her. I really don't think I'll ever be able to fully trust another. So after this, thanks to all the kind commenters, I appreciate you. Now for some comments where Opie replied. Comment. Did you tell his other GF? Opie. To stop? No, because I promised I wouldn't if he promised not to upload certain videos and pictures to a certain website after he threatened to do so. Comment. You need to call the cops and let them know he is blackmailing you and then let the other girl know. This is absolutely not okay. Do you have the messages where he said this? You need to go to the police then tell her. Opie. I tried going to the police, but they told me I needed a lawyer, and I can't afford one. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My daughter told me about my wife cheating on me with a guy she met at a grocery store. I, 34, male, was dating my fiancé, 32, for 3 years before I proposed. She grew up in a very sheltered household, so I was the first man she dated and slept with. We grew up in the country, away from it all, so we felt old-fashioned compared to how a lot of people live their lives, but that's how we liked it. Our families were proud, and there wasn't any drama. After she said yes, we started looking for a house to buy. It figures that the first house we look at is being shown by an extremely attractive man, and I say that as heterosexually as possible. I wasn't worried at first. I thought my wife to be loved and respected me, but when I saw the way she looked at the stranger, it was like she saw all the future possibilities if she married him instead. She asked him lots of questions about his personal life and seemed completely intrigued that life brought them together. I felt left in the dust. This couldn't have been all in my head. She wasn't just being friendly. When we left the house tour, I asked her what that was all about and she played dumb. She acted like I didn't just see her flirting with this guy like her life depended on it. I told her what I saw, and she said I must be an extremely jealous person to have seen something that wasn't happening. Well, I told her we weren't buying that house because I didn't like that guy, and I wasn't comfortable with her seeing him ever again. Since that day, she started asking me more questions about her appearance and what my goals were in life. I think she started wondering if I was good enough to be with her. She started talking about how great it would be to make as much money as a realtor and to be able to be dressed up and just show houses. Seems so easy. I told her I didn't want her to work at the same realty place as that guy. Little did I know she was already texting him and applied to the company 2 weeks later. She told me she was hired as a bank teller. She started going to work each day, and I didn't even go to the bank she was supposedly working at until a week after she started. I later on figured out that she wasn't there. I called her to see where she was, and she answered in a cheery voice, but when I told her I was looking for her at the bank, she panicked. She started stuttering and saying she was out to lunch, but I told her not to lie to me. I said I already went inside, and no one knew who she was. She was speechless. She finally said I had to promise not to be mad, and she told me she actually became a realtor. Of course, she was working at the realty place I told her not to. Then, before I even admitted how mad I was, she told me we were invited to App's house for dinner, the man that showed us the first house. I felt like I was losing my fiancé, and there was nothing I could do but play along. She swore they were only friends, and I didn't have any concrete proof otherwise. I wouldn't be able to divorce her without knowing. I wasn't jumping to conclusions, so we went to his house. It was a bachelor's mansion, and it made me sick. There was another couple invited over, so at least it wasn't just the three of us. but he mostly spoke to my wife all night long. When I couldn't hold it anymore, I went to the bathroom, and when I came back out, they were gone. I asked the other couple where they went, and they said outside, but they didn't look certain. I went outside and started speed walking around the house to find them, but I couldn't. I started yelling like a crazy person and felt like my woman shouldn't have put me in this situation. When I went back inside, I must have looked panicked. I think the girl felt bad for me because she said she saw them go upstairs. I took 3 steps at a time and found that only one bedroom door was locked. I banged on it, demanding to see my fiancé, and it was about 30 seconds until he opened the door. All he said was he was sorry. Old habits die hard when it comes to locking the door. But a few things crumbled his lie to pieces. First off, he had my fiancé's shade of lipstick on his lips. Her face was bright red, and she was trying to casually stand and hold her wine glass like she wasn't just caught in the act. App called for the other couple as if he was upset with them for failing to guard the stairs like he asked. But it turned out they left. I walked into the room and sniffed around, even smelling my fiancé's neck. She held her breath, said I was being weird, and asked me if we could go back downstairs. Now I ignored her and continued looking for clues. She stammered and said he was just showing her the space in his walk-in closets. I looked into her shameful eyes and asked how she had the nerve to lie to me, disobey me, and sleep with the guy I wanted her to avoid. At that moment, I knew she wasn't worth my commitment, as if all the things leading up to this weren't fishy enough. I told her she wasn't the hot stuff she thought she was, and she deserved to live a meaningless life without the sacred relationship between a man and a woman that I tried to have with her. App was super quiet and awkward. He looked completely different from the confident selling man my fiancé said was so infatuated with. I got in his terrified face and yelled that I should beat him to a pulp for taking my woman from me. He was so scared of that happening that he already called the police to request an officer's presence. I left before they got there. App didn't realize that by doing that he provided me with a police report. I obtained a copy of where they each admitted they were having an affair, and I caught them. I was able to use this to publicly shame them. They became the faces of sleazy salespersons you didn't want to trust around your own spouse. They lost their jobs and family support while I dodged a lifelong mistake. It still freaks me out that she started an affair with the first attractive man she came in contact with as an engaged woman. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Husband suddenly wanted an open relationship after 9 years of marriage. I filed for divorce after he refused to back down. My husband, 28M, and I, 29F, have been together for 9 years, married for 7. We got a not-so-classic shotgun wedding to give ourselves better chances of receiving custody of his half-sister, 10F, when their mom suddenly passed away. Despite only being 20 and 21 years old, we did receive full legal custody over her absent father. This information isn't super relevant to the current situation, but it really sets the tone of our relationship, with the sacrifices we made together and the things we each had to give up personally to raise this beautiful little girl. We don't have any children together, but his sister is now 17 and moved in with an older, more financially privileged aunt. Over the past year, this newfound alone time, I feel like we have flourished, each personally and as a couple. We never fight, arguments are rare, and we are pretty good at coming to understandings and apologizing when necessary. Basically, I feel we had a pretty healthy relationship. We each do little things for each other. I receive flowers no less than 10 times a year. We go on little vacations together and are generally really good. I guess a bit of the spark was sputtering out for a while, but I feel like that's normal for a relationship as long as ours. Fast forward to this past October. My husband seems like he has been depressed, which is normal for this time of year because of the timing of losing both his mom and dad in different years around the same time. The holidays are tough for him, so I get it and try to be there for him. He had previously planned a suicide attempt because of family issues before we met, so I take his mental health very seriously. He sits me down to have a serious conversation and starts it by saying he wants to open up our relationship. I felt my heart drop to my stomach but stayed silent and let him talk. He doesn't go into why. He just jumps right into rules and explains how he wants me to find someone first before he starts looking for someone himself. When I ask him why, he couldn't explain it and fumbled his words. I asked him if he already had someone in mind for himself, and of course he denies it. I couldn't help it. I definitely blew up. I was totally blindsided by this proposal. I slept on the couch after my outburst, and he didn't even try to come after me to explain anything, which kind of made me feel worse. I had never felt so unwanted in my life than in that moment. I have never given the impression that I was the kind of girl to be open to that kind of relationship. I will never judge anyone for wanting to live that kind of life, but it's just not for me. He went to work the next day, but I had the day off and really thought about my situation. After crying for hours, I came to the realization that this was the end for our marriage. Even suggesting an open marriage was a deal breaker for me. I realized, while he was still at work, I moved all his stuff out of our bedroom into his sister's old room. Technically a spare room now. He comes home from work ready to talk it out. After talking through more of why he wants this, I've come to realize several things. 1, he is way kinkier than he lets on and is disappointed with our bedroom life. He knows I'm not on the same level and doesn't want to push me past my boundaries to try things he knows I won't like. When I asked how he knows I won't like to try these new things, he explains they are an escalation of things he already knows I'm not down for but won't go into specifics. He also is unhappy with how infrequently we have sex but has never really put in the effort to change anything regarding it. Just complained over and over and expected me to just be ready to do the deed any minute of the day. 2, he feels we have nothing in common now that his sister is gone. For context, he is more of the outdoorsy type, whereas I like to stay inside and read or play video games. I do venture out once in a while to do things he likes, and I do genuinely enjoy them myself when I go, like kayaking and skiing. I do understand that it isn't as often as he would like, though. 3, because we got married so young, there are a lot of things neither of us really got to experience or try, mostly sexually. He is mourning the loss of his young 20s and never getting to sleep around and explore his kinks. 4, part of the rules he explained was that we wouldn't technically be sleeping around with whoever we wanted. He called it an open marriage but described it more as polyamory, where we would each have a boyfriend or girlfriend of our own that we went on dates and did things together, someone we were each allowed to love and be with sexually. An emotional connection was pivotal for him, which broke my heart to pieces. During our talk, I told him I would never be able to look at him the same. I would never be enough for him, and he was basically trying to get a pass for guilt-free cheating in my eyes. I told him it sounded like he wanted to be with someone else without ever leaving the comfort of his marriage, knowing he could date around and not worrying if those relationships would fail because he could just come home to me. He tried denying these things, saying he wanted to explore himself sexually but didn't want to lose me in the process. He tried getting me to agree to marriage counseling to talk about the open marriage concept. I told him just proposing an open marriage was grounds for divorce for me, and I wasn't willing to go to a counselor for them to gang up on me to try to bully me into trying it. I know, in reality, that never would have happened, but emotions were high in the moment because I told him I could never see him the same and how badly this crushed any self-confidence I may have had. He doubled down. He said if we go back into a relationship and pretend this never happened, then he would end up cheating on me. For him, it was open marriage or nothing. I chose nothing. Divorce papers were filed exactly 1 week later. He was very hurt, angry that I could jump right to divorce and kick him out of our bedroom so fast, but I refused to be a second choice or have to fight for his attention. I can't believe he is okay with the idea of another person being inside of me. He is willing to just give me up to explore his options. I can't believe I wasted so much of my time with him, helping him heal his family and raise his sister. I feel completely used. Advice. Did I overreact? Should I have waited longer before filing for divorce? Should I have just gone to marriage counseling? Or was my gut instinct correct about the marriage being over? I still love and care about him, but my brain is screaming to be logical. We still live together while we are trying to figure out how to split everything. But now he is being super toxic and petty, saying hurtful things and then begging for personal details about my life. I need to get out of this house. How do I cope with these complicated feelings? Comments where OP has replied. Comment. So much this. If I want to open our marriage hadn't been a deal breaker, his subsequent behavior should be. He's not sorry. He's not willing to move the slightest bit from his position. And I wonder why his sister wanted to move out. Is she just greedy? Or is there something else? OP. Oh, I didn't mean the sister being greedy, but the aunt not offering support before, but you definitely bring another point. Comment. For whatever reason, the aunt may not have been able to offer support earlier. Maybe she was in a bad marriage or worked abroad, etc. Opie. Their aunt actually normally resides several states away. She set up a temporary residence here to have a place to stay when she visits without having to stay in a hotel or bring her RV. Her husband is rich apparently, but I've never met him myself. She did help us with funds for their mother's funeral, but other than that, there was no real financial help from her nor any other family member. We were all alone. Of course, the little sister has her own trauma and issues. Husband and I work a lot and didn't feel we were able to give her the time and attention she needed. And this aunt is retired and had all the time and money in the world for her little sister. Her sister actually asked if she could move in with her aunt, and we didn't feel it was a bad idea, so we let her. Comment, I think the discovered I was poly thing can be a bit of a cop-out. It's not an immutable trait like being gay or straight. It's a relationship style, and many people can enjoy different ones depending on circumstances. There's lots of social expectations and emotional stuff that goes into it, etc. I know people often knee-jerk against poly in the sub and on Reddit in general. I have seen it work in real life, but never when it's sprung on someone partway through a relationship, which doesn't mean a relationship can't go naturally between the two. I think there's more of a spectrum than some people acknowledge as well. Opie. In actuality, my husband is not a polyamorous person, or at least he claims he isn't. He told me he doesn't want that for future relationships at all. Just with me so he can explore his kinks without losing me or making me uncomfortable in the bedroom. I think that sentiment was nice, maybe. Regardless, proposing an open marriage is still a deal breaker for me, so it doesn't really matter in the end anyway. Comment. It happened to me just like this. Dude was already cheating, and one of them threatened to tell me, so he said the same BS about opening the marriage, kinks, and so on. Broke my heart after 12 years. Then the trickle truth happened when he realized I was done based on the suggestion alone. Opie, you need to get STD tested immediately. Don't wait. Some STDs are symptomless but can cause permanent damage. Opie. I never once thought that he had already slept with someone. We have both been cheated on in the past, really in our teens, but still, and have agreed that we are better than that and would never subject someone else to being cheated on. However, the more comments I get on this subject, it's making me really paranoid. You can bet your ass I'm scheduling getting tested ASAP to make sure I'm clean. Our split has been pretty amicable in regards to evenly splitting assets and furniture. If I come back with an STD, that's proof he cheated before the open marriage talk. That would change everything for me. Comment, record any and every interaction with him for your lawyer. Especially since he is now abusing you because he didn't get his way. Opie. I was starting to feel crazy every time we talked. He made it seem like I was the villain and making things up. I started recording convos and playing them back. Man, is he gaslighting the hell out of me. I played one video for my best friend, and she flipped out. Commenter asked if OP's husband wants her to tell him everything, including telling her family their reasons about his needs. Opie, he wants to know where I go when I leave the house on my days off, when and where my family's Thanksgiving dinner was, if I told my family yet and what they said, who am I hanging out with, does work know yet, etc., etc. Some of it I felt is fine to be curious about, but other stuff there is literally no reason he should know. Also, thank you for reading and commenting. I feel so validated after all this support. Comment. I am asking this seriously. Is he gay? I do not think you were overreacting. Opie. Close friends who know are also wondering the same. He has been spending a lot of time with his gay best friend since the split. I don't think he is gay. If he is anything, he is bi, but he would never admit it. Update 1. Hello all. I wanted to say thank you all for the support. As for the update, where do I even start? It has been over the required 90 days since initially filing for divorce before it can be deemed official. I am going to the courthouse tomorrow to file the remaining paperwork. We had an easy, uncontested divorce. We agreed on how to split things with pretty much everything, and he didn't even give me a hard time about taking our 2 cats that are quite attached to me. He was always the spare human. I bought a small home for myself and said 2 cats and moved a few days ago. I won't lie. This whole process was very tough for me emotionally. It was especially hard considering he was constantly hot and then cold. He would jump from name-calling and trying to control who came over to our house to finding reasons to call me on the phone all day and joking around with me like nothing was wrong. I feel like I have emotional whiplash from the last 3 months of living with him while looking for a new place to live. At one point, he came home to see me eating a meal I just cooked during a break from packing. It was pretty disorganized, but I was in the middle of doing multiple things at the same time. He saw the mess and started yelling at me for it and throwing my things around the kitchen. Another day, he texted me asking me why I wasn't interested in where he had been spending his days off and later sheepishly asking if he would drop the open marriage demand. Would I ever consider trying again? Of course, I told him we were way past that, considering the multiple times he promised he would cheat on me if we didn't open the marriage. Also, I did get STD tested and came back clean as a whistle. I don't think he was already cheating, but he is damned embarrassed about this whole thing. He wants me to tell people he cheated on me when they ask why we are getting divorced instead of telling the truth of the matter. I'm still not sure what the correct course of action is for that. He was made aware in advance that after I moved and the divorce was finalized, I would be going no contact. I did all the legwork to make this happen, including getting all divorce paperwork and 2023 taxes filed, separating all bills and bank accounts, hiding the address to my new home, blocked him on all social media, and I will even be changing my phone number once everything is finalized. He feels that me going no contact is vindictive, no matter what he has said and done to hurt me. I still have a lot of love for this man. He doesn't deserve it, I know, but that is exactly why I need to go no contact. It's for my own peace and to maintain some semblance of self-respect. I can't tell him that because I don't want to give him or myself, TBH, any false hope that we could work things out. I have no plans to be with anyone else in the near or distant future. I just want to work on building my confidence and get in a healthier mindset. I haven't gotten to counseling yet, like many have suggested. I was in survival mode for the last 3 months so I could get out of that hell situation. Now that I'm in my new house and getting unpacked, I'm sure I will be able to relax enough to start feeling better soon. And if I don't, I have every intention of seeking professional help. I have a huge support network between friends and family. Our shared friends were all on my side as well. Not that there is a true right or wrong in a situation like this, but one of his best friends telling him this was the biggest mistake of his life was incredibly validating. The only thing I regret for my relationship with him is staying as long as I did despite all the red flags I ignored throughout the years. I went into detail on some of them in the comments of the original post. All I know is that I'm feeling a mix of relief and grief. I just need some time to allow myself to heal. Out of our many conversations, he told me that 99% of open marriages fail because they were open for failing marriages, and that since we had a great relationship, we would have been fine. I tried explaining to him that I learned from some of you guys that what he suggested was not an open marriage but his was parallel polyamory, and it was the most difficult form of polyamory to achieve. He didn't care and was only focused on convincing me to work it out with him. For me, there is nothing to work out. He wants to be with someone else and to fall in love again, so I am giving him the freedom to do that but gracefully stepping back. As many have said, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. There isn't much more to say on the matter. I said I was leaving and I did it. Here's to hoping 2024 is my year. Comments where OP has replied. Comment. I'm confused why you say he doesn't deserve no contact. He torpedoed your marriage because he wants to be with other women. He's lucky you didn't go nuclear on him. Actions have consequences. Opie. Oh no, he totally deserves no contact. I meant he doesn't deserve the love I still have for him. Comment. Regardless, she does not need to negotiate with emotional terrorists. If she is really concerned, she can always call the police for a wellness check, and if deemed necessary, he can get admitted for psych help. Opie. I agree that his emotional well-being isn't my problem anymore. Like I said, though, I still care about him and love him. That's not going to go away anytime soon, unfortunately. We have mutual friends, and I am still in contact with his family. They are all keeping their eyes and ears open for anything unusual. I don't feel like he is in any danger of suicidal tendencies anymore, even with this major life change. It doesn't hurt to extend a little bit of kindness, even if he doesn't know it's me behind the scenes. Just because he was shitty to me at the end of our marriage doesn't mean I want his life to end. Now on to the next story. Story 11. ending my friendship because my best friend wants to sleep with my boyfriend after he supported her during her breakup. Me and Kylie have been friends since our childhood. 1 month ago, her boyfriend cheated on her, which absolutely devastated her. Me and my boyfriend were there for her. She was very friendly with my boyfriend since our relationship started. Kylie was hurt and broken. Me and my boyfriend did everything so that she can feel better. Recently, we took her out to spend time with us. We took her to dinner with us, took her with us on our holidays, etc. Eventually, Kylie started to get better and better. She started to smile again and was looking very happy, but she kept herself away from dating because she told us that she can't believe in a guy. Very soon, we respected her decision and were fully supportive of her. Yesterday, Kylie came to our house. My BF was going outside to bring some food, so I greeted Kylie and told her to stay here and have lunch with us. Kylie smiled and agreed. When he left, Kylie came to me and told me she wanted to tell me something. I asked her what, and she told me if I could do a favor for her. She wasn't looking at me while saying this, so I felt a little awkward. Then, out of nowhere, she asked me if she wanted to sleep with my boyfriend for one night. I couldn't believe my ears. What I just heard from her. It took some time to get my senses back, and I told her what the heck she's talking about. She started to tell me that how bad and miserable she was because of her breakup, but then my boyfriend treated her best, made her feel happy, how my boyfriend took us to dinner, trips which her ex never did. She told me that she started to feel wondered while spending time with him. She also told me that how her self-esteem got badly damaged and now she can't trust anyone except my boyfriend. How she wants to feel herself once again by sleeping with my boyfriend. She told me it will help her to gain her self-esteem once again, and she will do better in the future by trusting others, and told me it will be a great favor on her if I agree on this. I was listening to her, standing like a dumb. After she finished her lecture, I shouted at her and told her to get out from my house. At first, she told me to think about it calmly, but I was in no mood to negotiate about this. So after some time, she became aggressive towards me and told me I'm an ungrateful person because she helped me in my past many times and I'm not helping her for once. She told me I'm a selfish person and my boyfriend deserves way better than me. She told me she will snatch my boyfriend from me and that she doesn't give a damn about our relationship. After saying all this, she went away. Now I'm confused, thinking what just happened. I went to my chat list to talk with other friends about this, but when I opened it, I saw almost everyone blocked me after saying some horrible things. I was sure she told our friends something. I didn't tell my boyfriend anything about it, but now I'm feeling paranoid about what she said lately. I'm getting bad thoughts that she will do something which will cause damage in my wonderful relationship. I always knew that Kylie was supportive in my relationship, but never thought that she would do something like this. Now I want to kick her out totally from my life, but my BF doesn't know anything about it because you consider Kylie like his sister. So am I the a-hole for wanting to break things off with her? Update 12 hours later. Recovered with Wayback Machine. Hello everyone. At first, I'd like to thank you for all of your suggestions. Yes, all of you were right. I should have told my BF immediately, but I didn't. I admit my stupidity, and I take responsibility for that. Sorry for the late update because we were tired after all this drama and went to sleep together. Here's something I want to make clear before the update. 1. Many of you commented it's a fake post. It seems like, but it's not. Even I couldn't believe that I'd face this kind of unthinkable situation. Maybe I wasn't able to write the whole situation properly because English is not my first language. It was a worse and long period for me. Maybe I couldn't fully describe the whole story or how everything happened, which makes my story suspicious, but it's not. The only proof I have is the screenshot of my friends who blocked me, so if you think it's a fake post, you can assume it caused different person, different views. If any one of you want to see those screenshots, you can DM me. 2. Many of you asked why my friends blocked me without even knowing my situation. I exactly don't know what she told them, but I'm actually grateful to Kylie because of this, I understood who are the actual friends. I didn't even try to contact them after they blocked me. Not even tried to know what's the reason. I was sure that they are no longer my friends, and I have cut them totally. Here's the update. Around 11:30 p.m., my boyfriend came home. I was sitting downstairs. He came and asked me what happened and why I called him so urgently. I told him to sit down. He did, and I told him everything Kylie said to me. Didn't spare a single word, and also told him that she fabricated something to my friends. For that, some of them blocked me. I showed him the blocked contacts. He was hearing all this silently for a second. He didn't move his eyes from my eyes. From his look, I understood that he was in total disbelief what he was hearing. But he composed himself and hugged me tight. I hugged him too and spent some time like that. After that, he said he can't believe Kylie would think something like that. He also told me he never gave Kylie an opportunity for thinking like that and can't even imagine that Kylie could say something like that to my face. He told me he feels emotionally drained because he thought he was getting a sister's affection from Kylie. But now it seems like his efforts were in vain. I comforted him by talking to him on my chest and told him it's okay and it's not his fault. At that moment he was sobbing a little bit, but he gained himself and took his phone out. He checked if there were any messages that Kylie sent him or not. Luckily, she didn't. Then he wrote a long text describing how disappointing Kylie's actions are, and also told her that he never ever wants to see her again and he will find a restraining order if she ever came near to our home. After sending that, he blocked her on every social media. He also texted 2 of my friends who blocked me from his chat box, saying that they are a-holes and thanking them for taking the garbage out from my life. Then he blocked them too. I was happy seeing that how he stood up along with me in this situation. After all this, we took dinner together and went to sleep. So that's the update. None of us heard anything from Kylie after she left our house. And we don't want to. Now I hope everything will get better between me and my boyfriend. We are planning our engagement very soon. Thanks again to everyone who suggested me the right advice in my situation and helped me to cover up this. I'm truly grateful to all of you. Life is beautiful when you have an amazing partner. Heart. Now on to the next story. Story 12. My girlfriend cheated on me multiple times, so I planned a fake proposal on her birthday and surprised her with evidence of her cheating in front of all her friends. A little backstory for context. I turned 18 and left home to move to a rural, blue-collar town. I started working in the trades and ended up making a decent amount of money. I was able to buy myself a decent place with a 3-car garage for all of my toys. I'm not afraid to admit that I treated myself. I played hard because I worked hard. I didn't grow up with a lot. My family struggled. So when I came into some money, I helped them out, paid their bills, and helped them get out of debt. My family and I are close, but in no way am I perfect. There was a point in time where I hit rock bottom. I became addicted to opiates because of an injury I received at work. I basically blew my knee out and had to get surgery. I was out of work for a good chunk of time. After I healed, I went back to work, but I was good and medicated. It started with opiates and then I mixed in some cocaine. I was in pain. I felt lonely. I was unhappy. I was working my ass off, but my family really helped me out and brought me back. I was at a really low point in my life, and they dragged me out of that hell. Shortly after getting sober, I was about 23. I met my future ex. I'll call her Kelsey. When we first met, she was dating someone else at the time. She had a long-term boyfriend who happened to work in the same town as me. We actually worked in the same camp, but because this camp is so big, I'd never actually worked closely with him. Even though we didn't work closely together, we had mutual friends. One of our mutual friends was having a barbecue, and Kelsey just happened to be in town that day and came to the barbecue. I'll be honest. At the barbecue, she was flirting with me, and I shamelessly flirted back. She texted me after that. At first, it was harmless, with maybe some dirty jokes here and there. I could tell she was trying to get me to bite, but I didn't, until the day she told me she broke up with him. When I had my off weekend, I drove 3 hours to see her and stay at her place for the weekend to get my nut in. Let me tell you, she did not disappoint. And looking back, she was mentally unstable, but it gave her a little spice and I liked it. Yeah, whatever. For the most part, our relationship thrived over the next 4 years, albeit with a recurring pattern of being on again, off again. Whenever I went out of my way to do something special for her, we'd get into this huge fight, and she'd break up with me. But the breakup didn't last very long because she'd still come over to me, and then she'd plead for reconciliation shortly after that. Honestly, this is just how it was, and it felt normal to me, and it honestly felt like a joke. I just never took it seriously when she broke up with me because I knew within the week she'd be over at my place seducing me. She was crazy, and it drove me wild in the best of ways. After a while, though, and after talking to her recently, she told me that she broke up with me because she was ashamed about the fact that she cheated on me, just as she had been cheating on her previous boyfriend. She told me she was basically addicted to it. She loved the attention. She loved the chase. And honestly, she became a bit of an addiction, too. I think a part of me didn't believe that I deserved love, so I got used to the feeling of being treated like that. At one point, though, I tried to put my foot down and try to practice some self-control. This lasted for about 4 months. In that time, while we were broken up, I took time off work and went backpacking through France, Italy, Croatia, and eventually to Greece. I met some of the most beautiful women I had ever laid eyes on, and for a moment, I had forgotten about Kelsey. Shocking, I know, but I was actually happy. When I got back, I started planning my next move. I was going to put my house up for sale and get out of that small town. I wanted to move somewhere warmer and just travel up north for work. But she must have smelled blood in the water because, as soon as I was shopping around, she called me up and expressed a desire to reconcile, expressing earnest intentions of commitment. So much so that we delved into discussions about marriage, starting a family, and even started house hunting together. SMH. But everything seemed to align perfectly, and I actually believed her. This is where it all started to go really downhill. So my work is really sporadic. We have jobs that can last anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months. It all really depends. While I'm off work, I go on unemployment insurance. I did end up selling my place in that blue-collar town. Kelsey and I ended up buying a place in the city that she lived in. But this all means that I can be away from home for at least 2 weeks at a time, at most maybe 6 weeks. If anything, I'd try to come home when I could, even if it was 3 days. So at one point, I come home from 6 weeks away. We just finished a shutdown, worked about 10 days straight. As soon as I get back, I start getting really sketchy vibes. She starts love-bombing me. She performs a certain act on me as soon as I walk in the door, then barbecues some steak, and then she starts a fire. We sit around the fire and finish up with a night of... I had a feeling she was trying to butter me up for something or hide something. She was definitely distracting me from something. We're laying in bed afterward. It's about 2 a.m. She's about 6 beers deep plus a bottle of wine. She's a lightweight, so by this time she's pretty plastered. She's laying there naked, and then she mentioned that this guy, I'll call him Ned, keeps talking to her on social media. She said that he randomly reached out to her on Instagram. Right away, I'm seeing a red flag. I try to shake it off and pretend like it didn't bother me. She keeps talking about this guy and how funny he is. I'm trying to bring up other things and change the subject. She keeps the topic back around to this Ned guy. She starts telling me about how Ned is so understanding, how he listens to her problems, how he gets her in ways I never could. It's like a dagger to my heart, listening to her praise another man while lying naked in my bed. But I try to stay composed, pushing down the rising tide of jealousy and insecurity as she continues. She mentions how Ned just got out of a relationship and he has been going through a tough time lately, how he's feeling lost and alone. And then, in a moment of vulnerability, she confesses that she's been confiding in him about our relationship issues. My mind reels at the betrayal, realizing that she's been airing our private struggles to a virtual stranger. But despite the anger and hurt simmering beneath the surface, I force myself to remain calm and try to listen as she recounts their conversations. Eventually, she passed out, and I instantly reached for her phone and took it to the bathroom with me so I could do some digging. Yeah, I felt guilty at first, but once I saw the messages between the two of them, the guilt was replaced with rage. I instantly woke her up and I held the phone in her face and showed her the nudes they'd been sending back and forth to each other. Not just recently, but prior to our 4-month break. By this point, we had been living together for close to a year. Naturally, she breaks down and she's crying and sobbing. She's drunk and not making any sense, so I take off and go stay at a buddy's place for the night. While I'm gone, she tries calling me and texting me, but I'm not answering. She's absolutely blowing up my phone. In the morning, I go back home and I find her passed out in the kitchen, and she's unresponsive. I come to find that she had a full-blown panic attack, so much so that she hyperventilated so much that she ended up passing out and hitting her head on the kitchen counter. She had a mild concussion. I told her I needed to hear the truth, and that's when she admitted to hooking up with Ned right before we broke up for the 4 months and I left on my trip. She said she thought that I was catching on to something back then, so she started a fight and broke up with me before I could break up with her. She said she hooked up with him while I was away working, and then realized she missed me, and when I got back, she wanted to get back together. She said she only started talking to him again while I was away working recently because I was gone and she had needs. She straight up told me that she's too horny for monogamy, but that she loves me and she doesn't want to lose me. Then she drops another bomb and she tells me that she actually didn't break up with our mutual friend before we started dating. She just wanted to be with me so badly that she told me that she had. Honestly, I had a feeling that she was still seeing him. She said she broke up with him after a couple of months and after she knew that I would stick around. I'll be honest with you. The addict in me said that I could fix her, and it also said that I wanted one more hit. That's always it, one more hit. So we did try. I told her that she needed to end things with Ned in order for this to work out. Not only that, but that she has to stay sober for me. So I saw her text him and end things. I read the text message, and then I saw her block him on her phone and on her Instagram account. I'm not sure why that was supposed to make me feel better. Deep down, I knew it wasn't going to do anything. We talk, and despite everything, I'm still in love with her and eager to pursue our shared dreams of starting a family, getting married, and owning a home together. It's the vision I've labored tirelessly for. I'll admit it was a lost cause, but a part of me wanted some security. I wanted this perfect little happy family. I wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted to bring the girl of my dreams home and show them just how much I turned my life around. I was a fool. Kelsey was overjoyed that I'd forgiven her and promised that she wouldn't hurt me again. In retrospect, I can't help but acknowledge my own naivete in believing her. As weeks turned into months, I started noticing small, unsettling changes. Kelsey was on her phone more often, always tilting the screen away from me. She'd get mysterious calls and texts late at night and became increasingly secretive about her whereabouts. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. One day, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to dig a little deeper. I knew snooping wasn't the right way to handle things, but the nagging suspicion was eating me alive. I began checking her social media activity more closely, noticing she had unblocked Ned and a few other guys. I confronted her about it, but she gaslighted me, making me feel like I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe her, so I brushed it off and tried to rebuild the trust, but my gut feeling was relentless. Then one night, while Kelsey was in the shower, I checked her phone again. This time, I found messages from multiple guys, not just Ned. They ranged from flirty banter to explicit exchanges. The final straw was a message she sent to Ned saying she missed their last hookup and couldn't wait for the next one. It hit me like a ton of bricks. She never stopped cheating. Feeling devastated and betrayed, I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own phone as evidence. I knew that her birthday was coming up. I knew that was my chance to get back at her. For her birthday, I had rented out this hotel room where she would come back after a night of dancing with her girlfriends. I told her I had a few things to take care of, but that I would meet her at the hotel room after. Little did she know, I had been meticulously planning a special surprise for her birthday, a surprise that would also serve as my payback. I'd been hinting to everyone that I had something big planned, dropping heavy clues about a potential engagement proposal. They were all eating out of the palm of my hand. Her friends were buzzing with excitement, and Kelsey herself seemed to be over the moon. Obviously, some of the girls had spilled the beans, which was fantastic. She would walk into the room thinking this night would mark a new chapter in our relationship. I meticulously set the scene at the hotel suite. I made sure everything looked perfect. Candles, champagne, romantic decorations, the whole 9 yards. Her friends gathered around, phones out, ready to capture what they believed would be the proposal moment. Kelsey's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Her face glowed with excitement. I started by giving a heartfelt speech about our journey together, how much she meant to me, and how I've always envisioned our future. I had to put on the biggest acting career of my life. Instead of getting down on one knee, I pulled out some papers. Her breath hitched, and there was a collective gasp from the crowd. Kelsey took it and started to read it. It was a printout of the messages between her and Ned, along with screenshots of her conversations with other guys. Her face fell. The room grew silent as the realization of what she was reading hit her. As she was reading the papers, I told her that this is what you've been doing behind my back. Cheating, lying, and betraying my trust. I watched her friend's expressions shift from excitement to shock and disgust. I told her that she didn't deserve a proposal and that I was done with her lies and deceit, and everyone should know the truth about her. Kelsey looked at me and lunged at me like she was going to slap me, but then luckily one of her friends stepped in. She started to cry, and I told her that I was done and I walked out. I knew I had to hurry up and take the next steps to truly move on from this toxic relationship. Honestly, I hadn't really thought that far ahead at that point in time, but the very next day I contacted a buddy of mine who's a real estate agent, and he helped me start the process of selling our home. I explained the situation to him, and he was understanding and professional and started the process up relatively fast. While waiting for the house to be listed, I packed up her stuff. I called her and told her she needed to come pick up her things. She arrived with one of her friends from the night before, looking disheveled and broken. There were no more tears or pleas, just a resigned acceptance that this was the end. I watched as she loaded her stuff into her car, and when she was done, she handed me the keys to the place we once shared, and I told her it was over for good. I said I was selling the place. During this process, Kelsey did ask for a share of the money from the sale of the house. She argued that, despite everything, she had contributed to our life together and deserved something for her efforts. I knew she might try this, so I had already consulted a lawyer. My lawyer advised me that since her name wasn't on the deed and she hadn't made any financial contributions towards the mortgage or the down payment, she didn't have any legal claim to the money. Still, I wanted to avoid a prolonged dispute, so I offered her a small sum as a goodwill gesture, enough to help her move on, but not enough to feel like I was being taken advantage of. Kelsey reluctantly accepted the offer, probably realizing she didn't have much of a choice. The real estate agent had lined up some viewings, and within a few weeks we had an offer on the house, and I accepted it right away. I used the proceeds from the sale to secure a new place for myself, far away from the city where Kelsey lived and closer to my family. And now I'm here. I'm in therapy. I'm working on me. I'm going to the gym. I'm not quite ready to start dating again, and I'll never buy another place with a chick that I can't trust or who has broken my trust ever again. I'm trying to heal the old wounds. My family, again, has really supported me throughout all of this, and I couldn't thank them enough. Thanks for listening to me ramble on, guys. Sharing this has been cathartic for me, and I genuinely hope it can offer some comfort or perspective to anyone going through similar struggles. For now, I'm planning my next trip to Europe. Maybe that'll heal this old dog. Now on to the next story. Story 13. I found out my wife cheated on me with our neighbor because when she got pregnant, the timing was off. The baby wasn't mine. So I exposed them at our baby shower in front of everyone. I, a 33-year-old male, met my wife, a 33-year-old female, when we were working in the same office 8 years ago. I was new in town. I just moved to a brand new city for my job, and she was a receptionist at the time. She gave me a tour of the facilities, and we hit it off. It took a few weeks for me to work up the courage to ask her out, but she said yes, and we had been together ever since. We got married a few years later, and everything felt like a dream. We were happy, doing well in our lives, and so in love. Before marriage, we had a conversation about family, and we both wanted children, but we wanted to wait until it was the right time. We saw starting a family in our 20s as giving up our youth, so we made the most of it. We traveled, we went skydiving, and we enjoyed ourselves without having to worry about anyone else. Over the years, during our marriage, I started to realize that I wanted to settle down and start a family. However, it was clear that my wife still wanted to have the jet-setting lifestyle that we had before. We actually ended up getting into a lot of arguments about how we wanted different things in our lives. In one of those arguments, I told her that if she wasn't going to have children, I would have to leave her. I know it was a crappy ultimatum, but I had been very clear that I wanted children. She told me about some of the fears she had and how she wanted to be a mom, but she wasn't sure when. I guess that gave me enough hope to stick around. About a year had passed, and approaching the subject was a delicate situation for me, so I tried to avoid it. She was still going out on the weekends with her girlfriends and going to bars and clubs while I was home recuperating from the work week. I started to notice that she was staying out later and going out more frequently with her friends. Before she would go out on Friday and Saturday nights, but she had started going out on weeknights as well. When I asked her about it, she told me that she and her friends found a fun happy hour place and had been going there. One night, I was at home watching a nature documentary while my wife was supposedly at a happy hour with some of her friends. One of those friends happened to be our next-door neighbor who we were pretty close with. She and her husband would invite us over all the time, and we would do the same with them. Someone rang my doorbell, so I got up and answered it. Lo and behold, it was the woman next door who I was under the impression was out with my wife. Apparently, her car wouldn't start, so she needed me to give it a jump since her husband hadn't come home yet. I agreed and grabbed my keys to walk over to her house with her. I asked her why she wasn't at the happy hour with my wife, and she told me that my wife said it was canceled. A lot of red flags were flying from me at that point. Our neighbors were probably some of our closest friends. I didn't understand why my wife would lie to her and tell her the happy hour was canceled. As we were talking more, she mentioned that she had really been looking forward to it, and she was upset that it was canceled because her husband had been working late a lot more. Right away, I was kind of suspicious about that. Maybe it was my own paranoia, or maybe I was putting some pieces together that I didn't even know were connected, but I was wondering if there might have been something going on with my wife and my neighbor. When she got home, I asked her about it outright. She told me that I was being crazy for assuming that she would be cheating on me with our neighbor of all people. Then she explained why she told our neighbor the happy hour was canceled. Apparently, she had rubbed someone in her group of friends the wrong way, and they were uncomfortable with her being there. I believed what she said at the time, but in hindsight, it didn't make any sense. Our neighbor was the sweetest woman, and I couldn't understand how she would rub someone the wrong way like that. With all our issues, our sex life had pretty much gone out the window. We had a lot of built-up resentment toward each other, and we didn't really talk about it in a healthy way. We didn't want to be with each other. One night, when I got home from work, my wife was home and very eager to sleep with me. I was surprised, but I didn't think much of it. I was just happy it was happening. About a week later, she was waiting for me when I got home from work in the living room, holding a pregnancy test in her hand. It was positive. At the time, I was completely over the moon. I was finally going to have a kid. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that it wasn't mine. She wasn't going to clubs or happy hours because of the pregnancy, but she was still out quite often. I felt like we should have been together through most of the pregnancy, but it still felt kind of like she was avoiding me. Something that occurs to me now but I didn't think much of at the time is that she never wanted me to go with her to the ultrasound appointments. She would always tell me that they weren't anything important, but I wanted to see the little baby on the monitor. I was finally able to convince her to let me go to one. While we were there, the doctor showed us our baby on the monitor, and I was so moved I almost cried. Out of curiosity, I asked her if they had an estimated conception date. My wife quickly stepped in and played it off like they would have no way of knowing, but the doctor said that they could give a rough estimate, usually within a week of the actual date. She gave me the estimated time range, and later on, when I was thinking about it, I realized that it was during the period of time my wife and I hadn't been together in months. She and I had sex together one time, and a week later she told me she was pregnant. I did a little bit of research online to figure out if a week was enough time to get a positive test, and from what I gathered, it was pretty rare. Rare enough for a woman to even notice she was pregnant a week after conception. Something wasn't adding up, and I needed answers before the baby came. I've never been one to go through my wife's things. That was a boundary neither of us wanted to cross with each other. But in this case, when I thought she was lying to me about being the father of the child I so desperately wanted, I was able to justify doing it. I logged into her laptop while she was out, and I found countless messages through her social media pages between her and our neighbor. All of my suspicions about the two of them had been correct. They had been sleeping together for several months, and it was clear through the messages that the baby was his. He didn't want anything to do with it, and he was worried that it would ruin his life if anything came out about the affair. They both agreed that they would pretend the baby was mine. I honestly can't put into words how heartbreaking that was to learn. Having a child was my #1 priority at the time. I was so happy that it was finally happening, and all of that was taken from me. I wasn't going to let them get away with what they were trying to do. Neither of them got to ruin my life and pretend like nothing happened. A few weeks passed, and I was pulling away from my wife. I was in the process of getting a divorce attorney and filing the papers so I could surprise her with them. We were throwing a shower so people could buy us gifts and welcome the baby a few months before it came. All of our friends and family came over to our house for the event. It was the perfect time to call them both out for the affair. Before the presents were open and the cake was cut, I stood up next to my wife and told the room that I wanted to say something. Everybody looked at me as if they were expecting me to give some heartfelt message about how much I loved my wife and couldn't wait to welcome our baby into this world together. Instead, I congratulated her and the father on their baby. I could sense that there was some confusion in the room, so I clarified. I let everybody know, including my wife, that I knew the baby wasn't mine. Everyone was shocked and disgusted with her. It takes a special kind of person to pretend like a baby is someone else's. When I was finished, I handed her the divorce papers and told her that I would be leaving the house and that I would have nothing to do with her or her baby. My neighbor's wife was furious, and she dragged him outside to tell him off. As it turned out, he was given a position at her father's company and was up for quite the promotion because he planned on retiring. It was a family-owned company, and his father-in-law wanted to make sure it stayed in the family, so he was going to inherit all of it. When they got divorced, that didn't happen. I was able to get a divorce from my wife, and I'm better off without her. Now I'm actually with someone else who seems to want the same things in life as I do. We're still in the beginning stages, so I don't know if this is a forever thing, but I have a good feeling about her. My now ex-wife and our neighbor tried to work things out for the sake of the baby, but I guess they only liked each other when they were sneaking around. Neither of them are in relationships. My ex ended up moving back home with her mom because she couldn't afford the rent in our neighborhood by herself. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.